Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116, or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Welcome back. The Board of Selectmen has just returned from executive session and a short If you can, we're now entering back into public session. If you can all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going this evening, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. One comment is that at our last meeting, we had some disruption in the room, and as we proceed forward, as chairman, one of the items we have this evening on our agenda is to develop a policy as a group, as a Board of Selectmen, on acceptable behavior for speakers as well as acceptable behavior for those in attendance at Board of Selectmen's meetings. The intent is not to stifle anyone's public right of free speech. However, what I will ask as chair until that policy is developed is that we maintain civility as well as courtesy for those that are here in attendance and for those who would also like to speak. I would say that it is understood that everybody has a passion about the issues that they speak of, and nobody is here to curtail or censor anyone's passions. We are here to keep issues on target. We are here to speak about the issues that are on our agenda, and we are not going to vary from those agenda items as we move forward. The board collectively has an opportunity to bring forward to me anything that they would like on the agenda, and to date, I have not refused any item from any member of the board. So for us to have efficiency in moving forward, our government, on behalf of the policymakers of this community, I am going to demand, until we come up with a policy, that the Board of Selectmen, as chairman, that there will be no speaking without being addressed. There will be no catcalls, no comments from the audience. And if you have any comments, please save them for when you leave the room. You may do so after you leave this room, because it is not fair to those that have come here to be able to hear, to understand, and be able to move forward in our form of government. That being said, I'll move now to our first agenda item, and that would be to interview and vote appointments for the Capital Advisory Committee. We had 2 interviews last week. One of our applicants happened to be traveling and didn't receive the letter. He was actually away. The letter came to his house 3 days before the meeting. So we've made a courtesy based off of the board's vote last week to interview Mr. Paul Zeb Rich. If you'd like to come up, please. And this, again, is for 2 positions on the Capital Advisory Committee. I did want to tell the board, before we get going, Mr. Rich, that there is an additional application in your packet, but that application did not come in until this past Friday, so it did meet the deadline. Zeb, if I might call you that?
Yes, you may.
All right. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Capital Advisory Committee?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to apologize for not being here last week. I had a trip planned to San Francisco. I also missed the Beach Committee meeting last week because on kind of that trip. As you could see on my application and the resume that I sent in, I have extended experience in the field of town government as an elected official as well as appointed official in my town that I grew up in, which was the town of Norton. I served on the Board of Selectmen and various other boards and worked with budgets, and we have the same problem as every other town and city in the Commonwealth, the 351 cities, is to make repairs, but also come up with the money, which is not such a burden on the taxpayers all at once. Unfortunately, in my opinion, the question that was defeated last year, which would have helped us with some of the needs that this town needed, what I would like to do as a member of that committee, the advisory committee, is make some recommendations where we can set aside some money each year use that money where we don't burden the taxpayers at a full scale, use some of the money that we get from the state. Now, this past year with the state lottery, as we're all well aware, the lottery did extremely well, better anticipating than what they expected. Now, how much money that the towns and cities will get depends naturally on the formula that they use. But if we could start setting aside X amount of dollars each year, either in a capital improvements plan or a stabilization fund or both, what we can do is correct some of the problems we have in this town over a long period of time. Can't be done overnight because the people just can't afford the high taxes. But if you do it a little at a time, the tax rate won't have such an effect. We can set this money aside, and then the powers to be, the selectman, the town manager, can now sit down and say, we have X amount of money this year. What are the priorities that we can do to make the improvements for the community? And this will help us out. What I like to do is contribute to this committee some of the experience I received serving in the town of Norton to the town of Falmouth. Do you have any other questions?
Thank you, Zip. Doug?
Mr. Chair, if you could go in a little more detail about your experience working with the budgets in Norton as to whether you were involved in creating them or more in overseeing them, just a little more detail on that, please.
And when I first got elected to the Board of Selectmen, what we had, Mr. Jones, was an executive secretary. You worked with the executive secretary, but you had the final say over the budgets. What you did was you created the budget, you worked with the department heads, you went over each budget, you brought them in, then after you made the final decisions and listened to what their concern, their needs were, that's what you did. Of course, your budget's, a good percentage of your budget is already mandated to you through wages, contracts, county government, and other things. So you actually have a small area to work with for improvements. Then later on, when I was still a selectman, the town went to a town manager. Then you became an overseer. But in all our budgets, we went to the finance committee and tried to naturally sell the budget, explain it to them. So when we went to town meeting floor, we didn't look like Mickey the Dunce. We tried to have everything in order to, to persuade the people, or if there were any questions that would come up, we would have a symposium with the townspeople and explain to them what that question would be and how it would affect your tax rate.
First, I want to thank you very much for your application. It's tough this day and age sometimes to get people interested in serving. I have a question. First, a remark. I know you made mention, and I'm glad you did, of the $800,000 that failed. One of the things the majority of the people told me, it wasn't that they really didn't want to not vote for it. They understand the needs we have. What they told me was, they have a checkbook, the economy's bad, they're told to live within their budget, they wanted us to do it. And I really think we've come a long way. But one of the questions I had asked the other two candidates was how you felt about enterprise funds for certain of our departments, like wastewater or water department. Did you have any of that in Norton?
Actually, the only department that had an enterprise fund was the water department.
How did it work?
And it worked well.
Okay.
They took the money in for the use of the water, naturally. There were water commissioners that were elected in the town of Norton. Norton was unique in a way that when I first ran, we didn't have a quote-unquote town charter. Most of your positions were elected. They were responsible for their own budget. They went to the Finance Committee and fought for it. But they would come to us naturally for support on town meeting floor. But it worked well. They never were overdrawn on their budget. They'd come up every year with a figure, but it was a small department. It wasn't a big one.
If there was money left in an enterprise fund at the end of the fiscal year, did that money remain in there, or did it roll over? And if it did remain in there, did the next fiscal year, did they ask for less money because they still had, how does that, give me an idea.
The money went to general fund.
Okay,
Money went to a general fund.
okay.
And then we used it for, if anything unexpected came up. You might have to call a special town meeting, you know, to use the money, and actually it was to transfer the funds from the water
Okay.
enterprise account to whatever it may have to be used.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman.
No questions. Thank you for the resume. Much appreciated. My questions have been answered.
Pat?
You mentioned in your opening remarks that you were aware of the failure of the ballot questions last year that related to capital equipment and capital items. So I wondered if you had any thoughts about how we might be able to reach out and explain to voters so that they have enough information that they are more positively inclined to vote for these ballot questions that we think are important to maintain our infrastructure?
Nothing beats educating the people. Nothing beats that. What you have to do is you have to set up meetings, even if you have to set them up in each borough or section of the community. West Falmouth, have it maybe at the fire station. So you become more available to the people. You go to the people. Don't let people come to you. Explain it to them. Go to Woods Hole. Have a hall. People, this is what we need. If we don't get it, this is what's going to happen. Just lay it on the line to them. If you tell the people up front what's going to happen, they might not agree with you, but they'll understand it. Educating the people is the big thing. The question that failed, unfortunately, I don't think the people really understood the question because they weren't really educated about the question. I'm not saying the people in Falmouth are not educated. Don't get me, don't take me the wrong way. But you got to understand everything you vote on. And a lot of people take the attitude, unfortunately, and we're seeing it in this election, who cares? They're going to do what they want. Well, get out and voice your opinion. That's how we change government, and that's what the government's there. The government there is for them, not for the people that make the decision, but for them. They make the decision. That's how I feel. I think what we have to do is, like I say, go to each section of the community. What we used to do, and I can only talk about what we used to do, even our selectmen meetings, every once in a while would have a selectmen meeting in a different area of town. And the purpose of that was, let's say we had something to come up in Woods Hole, and that we knew that was going to be controversial. We went to Woods Hole. We would go to Woods Hole and have the meeting, so the people are there. And now they have no excuse, well, it's too far away, I couldn't get out, and this and that. That's the main thing, in my opinion.
I'm going to ask you another sort of related question about that because the last time, as you know, we have precinct meetings within 2 weeks of town meeting.
Right.
Every precinct has a meeting. And there's a lot of information that that gets covered in that meeting. That's very true. And so probably sometimes there isn't enough discussion on the ballot question. The Water Quality Management Committee, on the other hand, when they were working very hard to educate the public on the articles that related to the the draft comprehensive management plan, wastewater management plan. And what they did was they raised the money, and they went out and bought signs, and they went out and educated the public, and they mailed letters to people at home. Would you think that might be more effective, perhaps, than just having meetings, or would you do both?
Well, if you raise the money, like
Well, we
anything-
couldn't raise the money, but they could raise the
Yeah,
money.
if you raise money like that, you form a political action committee, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's certain rules and regulations you're guided by the Secretary of State. Now, I could be wrong on this,
Yeah, I think,
but you have to file a financial report and this and that.
not with this, no.
Okay.
It wouldn't be
But
that way.
I
It
know,
would
like,
be-
there was a
It
couple
would
of-
be more informal.
I know there was a couple of questions about additional, of the schools in Norton. And a private organization went out and bought signs and did what you mentioned. It did educate the people, because it was the biggest turnout the town ever had. It got voted down 2 years in a row. And finally, it passed. But, yeah, anything like that the people feel that it's important to get something passed, you take every means possible to do it. It takes a lot of time and a lot of work. But in this town here, like any other town, when people come up and serve on committee or run for public office, they do it for pride in their community.
Okay, the other statement, I just want to make a statement for the record, and that has to do with the enterprise funds. And it could be that your experience with enterprise funds was some time back before they actually changed. Maybe they've
Yes,
been,
it was.
the laws have changed, because now the money in the enterprise fund stays there.
Yeah.
It rolls over to the next year. All expenses that are related to provide the water services from the town can be used out of that enterprise fund. Anything related to the maintenance and paying the salaries and buying the equipment of all that, the enterprise fund can be used to pay that, and the rates support that. If it can, and that the amount that can be in the fund is regulated by the state. It can only have a certain amount. If it seems as though there's excess money coming into the fund, then they might say, cut back your rates. But there are some prescriptives, I guess you would say, in terms of how those funds are managed. But now, they are clearly for that sole purpose. They're funded by the rates, and they do roll over each year. Just so I
Thank
wanted
you.
to make that clear for the record.
Thank you.
Okay, the only question that I have is can you help the Board of Selectmen build consensus within a committee?
I hope so.
To find alternatives.
That is one of the reasons why I'm stepping forward. I
Okay.
talk to a lot of people in the course of a day. I'm not afraid to speak up. A lot of people don't agree with my opinion, and that's their prerogative. But I always felt this way. If everybody agrees with everybody, that means only one person's thinking.
It's a good comment.
There's a lot of folks that don't agree with all of our opinions either, Mr. Rich, so I wouldn't worry about it. What is the board's pleasure? We have 3 candidates, we have 2 positions. Pardon me? We have 3 candidates for 2 positions. Would like to get this, I would personally like to get this committee off to a running start, but do I have any kind of motion to put all the names in a nomination, or?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make that motion.
So we have a motion to put Mr. Finneran's name, Mr. Shearer's name, and Mr. Rich's name. You're all set. You can be
Okay,
excused.
thank you.
I'll
Thank you,
second it.
nomination. Thank you.
I'll
Go
second,
Irish.
well said. I'll second that, Mr.
A
Chairman.
motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I'll call a roll call vote. And remember, we have 3 candidates. Jones,
So you're looking for 2 votes or 1 vote?
2 votes? We have 2 openings.
Paul Rich, Dan Shearer?
Braga?
Dan Shearer, Paul Rich.
Brent?
Dan Shearer, Paul Rich.
Pat?
Dan Shearer, Paul Rich.
And I'll make that unanimous. Dan Scherer, Paul Rich. Thank you. Trust me, you have a lot of work to do. The committee is now fully formulated. We will convene a meeting of the committee. There are 2 representatives from the Board of Selectmen. If I'm not mistaken, it's Mr. Putnam and Mr. Jones.
Mr. Chairman, I would require Mr. Shearer to bring that plant back in 12 months. I want to see it. You're going to bring that plant back. I want to see that plant in 12 months.
With money on it.
Out of my office under grow light.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up is a discussion by the Board of Selectmen on a meetings and speaker attendee behavior policy, as well as just a general policy on attendance and speakers at the Board of Selectmen's meetings. Mr. Braga had found a copy of a draft that was prepared in 2010. It is only for discussion purposes. If the board sees fit to look at this a little bit. What is the feelings of the board? I surely don't want to be doing things in a vacuum in my own context here, moving forward for developing a policy like this. Evidently, in 2010, when I was not on the board, it had come forward in some form or fashion. It had never come to fruition, but I think it's appropriate now that the board take this back up.
Mr. Chairman, this was presented to us at our retreat at Highfield Hall 2 years ago.
Okay.
As one that was being used in other communities by the presenter we had that day. And it is, we never did do any more about it when we got into the policies, but I think it's apropos right now. And if you read this, it does make a lot of sense. I'm not sure what changes anyone would want to make, but that's where this document came from.
I think it would be really hard, well, first of all, I'd like to poll the board to see whether there's consensus to build a policy for this. The policy would have some basic overview of what's expected and what is not expected from the board, from both speakers and the public. The policy would also have some defined areas of discipline, I guess would be the best term to use, as we move forward for those that do not cooperate with the policy. So I guess the first thing I want to do is get this out there whether or not we want to develop this policy. If the board has consensus that they don't want to develop the policy, well, the chair, whoever the chair may be, would be required to maintain order within the meeting. So, Pat?
Well, I just wanted to say that the open meeting law is very clear that no one can speak at a Board of Selectmen's meeting unless they are recognized to speak by the chair. I mean, that's very clear. And it goes on to say, it talks about the respectful nature of the meeting and of the people who attend. But I do think that this policy is very well done. And I think it sends just another message to the community. I mean, how many people in the community ever read the open meeting law? Probably nobody. And so maybe people don't realize that they don't have a right to come in and speak unless they're recognized. I know that happened to me a couple of times back in the 90s when there was an issue that had to be dealt with because of a lack of respect at the selectmen's meeting. So I think to have this policy and have it included in our policy that's also on the website so that people can read it and know what's expected of them if they come to a selectmen's meeting, whether they come because they're on the agenda or whether they come just because they like to come and observe how the business of the town is conducted. But I don't think there's anything in here that I would object to. I think it's inclusive, I think it's well-written, and I would support it.
Rest of the board? Brett?
Just to second what Ms. Flynn said, it's it's all common sense, and I agree the statement about the open meeting law. Nobody's going to read that, but I think a simple one-page policy such as this, it makes it easy for people to understand what's expected of them when they walk into the room. And I think this is, one of the things that the board did a few years back is we established for ourselves a code of conduct. And I think this is, if nothing else, thank you, Mr. Braga, our code of conduct. It's simply an extension of that, saying, listen.
He's not supposed to pass that to you at a meeting.
But it's an extension of, we have a code of conduct, what's expected of us, and then this is simply what's expected of the audience when they come to the meeting, so.
Well, actually, the very last item, number 10, speaks to the board, how the board conducts themselves respectfully to other board members, to the speakers and members of the public, and that's important too, because although we've been very fortunate for many years now, the board has been very respectful, and I think that that's a real plus for us.
Well, Pat, you've been in politics a lot longer than I have, and I don't know when it changed, but if I have a disagreement with you, why do we have to tear down someone's character? I want to discuss the opinion you have, but it evolved into this, and we allow it, You see it anyway, you turn the TV, it's there, and I just don't understand why someone has to tear down someone's character and reputation, when if I disagree with whatever your opinion is, I should concentrate on that.
Right, it should never be personal.
Right.
It should always be about the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is very well done, wherever you found it. It's good.
It was presented to us.
That was well said, Mr. Braga.
Thank you.
Yes.
My only point is, I would love to even push it a little bit harder, saying that if anyone walks into this room during one of our meetings, they can know this room will be held with civility, courtesy, and respect. And anything beyond that will not be tolerated. I don't think we can come across strong enough on that. I think your message at the beginning of this meeting made it very, very clear, and I think this does also. I just think that anyone who comes in here knows that they are in a place where they can feel that they're safe to be treated respectfully.
And I think it's important to note that that goes for all sides of an issue.
Absolutely.
That this is not about any one faction or any one group that may disagree with government. Those are the folks that make our government better by interacting with our government. However, there's a civil process and there's an uncivil process to do so. How about, go ahead, Pat.
I was just going to say one more thing. Someone suggested this to me many years ago, probably back in the 90s, that when you're chair, and if there is a disruption occurring at the meeting, somebody gets out of control, begins to speak in a loud voice, is disrespectful, the best thing the chair can do is to call a recess. And that stops everything. And I had to do that one night when we used to meet downstairs in the civil defense room. There was a person who came to the meeting and was very disrespectful and very loud. So I called a recess. And I went over to him and I said to him that what his behavior was, it was very disrespectful. If he wished to continue to speak before the board, he had to modify his behavior. And if he couldn't, then I would order him to leave the room. And if he wouldn't leave the room, I would call the police and have the police remove him from the room. And when he calmed down, the board resumed the meeting, and that was the end of it. And so I think that option of a recess is a very good way to put a stop to what's occurring, because you can't continue the meeting if all this is going on. It doesn't work. It's just something to think about.
Oh, and
Someone
I
suggested it to me, and I found it
I
worked.
wholeheartedly agree with you, but it should never get to that point.
Absolutely.
So,
The other thing, Mr. Chairman, is the fact that we have a draft policy for the first time that I've been here in 3 years that we actually all agree on the very first night we're presented with it. It must be well-written, so.
well, how about this? Go ahead, Brad.
Well, I think it was was it drafted by Mr. Duffy, or was it drafted by the facilitator? I forget.
This was handed to us by the
So
facilitator.
it's-
I even forget his name. It was
The
one
hand
that-
of experience.
Yes.
Jeff Nutting.
Jeff
Nutting,
Nutting,
yes.
That's where it came from.
Did
Yes,
we-
I think you're right. That's
Yeah.
where it came from.
I would suggest one change, and that is where it says board, perhaps in keeping with the changes that are being recommended for the town charter, say governmental body, because as you know, when we pass a policy, it is, our policies flow down from us, and so all of the other boards, committees, commissions, the governmental bodies that we appoint would have to adhere to the policies that we impose, and this would be one of them. So that would be my only suggestion, is simply replace the word board with governmental body so that it is consistent with the changes that are being proposed for the charter, and so that it's understood that this applies to all of the boards, committees, and commissions that fall under our purview.
Do we have a committee policy now, though? It's not creating, I know we have a committee handbook which has not been completed, but did we pass a policy for the committees already similar to this?
Nothing like this that I
Okay,
know of.
I just want to make sure we're not,
Yeah, and I'm
but I,
gonna,
go ahead.
my goal tonight was to find out, first of all, whether or not we wanted to do this. There are some tweaking of this,
Okay.
this policy. Number one, it starts out with a speaker policy. It should be speaker and attendee policy or
Yeah.
something of that nature.
Okay.
So how about we take this, we don't have a meeting next Monday. The board looks it over, they come back, at least we know we have a template to work with. If you have some areas that you think might need to be tweaked, Brent, you have a good point about the governmental policy, the governmental body, because we want to disseminate this to all of the committees in town. So I think we should make sure that this is enacted by the other, regulatory bodies as well, who deal on a day-to-day basis with folks, who are very similar, have people that are passionate about issues. And we want to keep the idea that the passion stays with the subject, and it doesn't vary off of civility as we move forward.
Should we, then, and one step further, Mr. Chairman, should we let the other, maybe
I don't
release
believe-
this to the other boards so they know what we're doing, if maybe have an idea on it as well?
Well,
No?
I mean, this is available in the Board of Selectmen's office if anyone would like to see it, but I think leadership comes from this board, and we're the ones that set up policy and procedure based off of the charter. If anyone would like to have input or wants to pick it up, they can pick up a copy in the Selectmen's office. But again, I would hope that the board would have some comments. Mr. Jones, you had a good comment there, that maybe we'll try to work that in as well. Yes?
I would actually move that we approve the policy in principle tonight so that we have something to work with and that we fine-tune it and approve it in detail when we can in 2 or 3 weeks. But I think for you as the chair to know that you have your board behind you on the principles of this policy, I think might be very useful. So I'd like to make sure that motion.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor, and there is a second, and if I can recap the motion, we are going to accept this policy in principle and move to refine the definitive policy within the next several weeks. But, in fact, we would enact this policy as it stands until we refine the policy. Okay? So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board's part? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, Mr. Rich?
Thank you very much for voting. I say thank you now, but I couldn't say it. Why did you do that?
We might want to say no coming at the Board of Selectmen.
That was the other thing.
Okay. Next item up is the discuss and vote creation of the position and classification of Deputy Public Works Director. Mr. Suso.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've transmitted some information to the board regarding this proposal, and I'll just briefly run through it. It includes some exhibits as well. In summary, in my 10 months as town manager, it's become fundamentally clear that the town's departmental organizational structure has a primary flaw in the management structure of public works. This is the glaring absence of a clearly defined second-in-command position within that large and diverse department. The town's 3 largest and most complex departments, which are all, of course, public safety related, are police, fire, and public works. All 3 have year-round responsibilities, 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. Both the police and fire departments have approximately 70 employees. The Department of Public Works, with approximately 90 employees, has about 25% more. Both the police and fire departments have several internal divisions within their departmental organizations. The Department of Public Works has a greater number of internal divisions and a greater internal complexity. Both the police department and the fire department each have two second-in-command positions within their organization. In police, that consists of two captains. In the fire department, two deputy chiefs. The Department of Public Works has none within its formal organization. An attached general organization chart further demonstrates these issues for those three departments. In my opinion, this is an extraordinary organizational weakness which becomes more significant over time. I've also transmitted to the board a copy of a draft, a job description for the position of Deputy Public Works Director. I do want to emphasize that a fundamental responsibility of this proposed position is the management of the town's solid waste and recycling functions. That would be the primary responsibility. This position is proposed to be compensated within a newly suggested 10A classification. The 10A classification has a compensation range midway between the existing classifications of 10 and 11. The 10A determination is based upon a review and evaluation of the job duties of this position as outlined by the Personnel Department, utilizing their standard job evaluation techniques. We do have our Personnel Director, Denise Coleman, with us here this evening, who oversaw that process. The exhibit which I've transmitted to the board with M classes representing management employees is illustrative. The existing M10 classification currently includes three positions which the Deputy DPW Director, as proposed, would have some supervisory responsibility for, working, of course, in conjunction with the DPW Director. The existing M11 classification, by contrast, specifically includes the DPW Director. It is most appropriate, therefore, to place this deputy position midway between those two classifications, and I so recommend with the proposed 10A, and you have a copy of that range. The Deputy DPW Director position is proposed as part of a warrant article, as the board's aware, for the November town meeting. That would be Article 29. The same article would both create the deputy position and at the same time delete the vacant position of Assistant Superintendent of Parks and Forestry, also within Public Works. So one position is proposed to be created, one to be deleted. Further, existing funds within the current FY13 Public Works budget would be reallocated to provide the necessary compensation for the proposed deputy position, allowing it to be advertised and filled after January 1st. No additional funds would be needed for this position in the existing fiscal year 13 budget. Be happy to answer questions, Mr. Chairman, that the board may have.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions for the board? David?
Maybe it's more of a comment, Julian, but you and I had met some time ago when you were trying to sell the financial, and what caught my eye was the procurement, which I'm very much, and you know that.
Yes.
And what I see on here in paragraph 5, which to me is caught my eye, and it starts talking about we'll manage the operations of solid waste and recycling, because you know we need that, and I'm hoping that will be a big part of the job, and you'll promise me and the people who've been asking for this since 1989, and that's a big part of this, and I hope it really sticks in this job description. That's all I want to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I have any other questions? I do have one question. I believe the Board of Selectmen has to create a position before it moves to town meeting. But I also believe that the Board of Selectmen might want to delete a position as well. So I think on a future agenda, we need to put the deletion of those positions. I think that we continue to keep, we talk about it, but we continue to keep those positions on the books. I know we have positions in the Department of Public Works that continue to remain on the books. I think we actually need to delete those positions at a Board of Selectmen's meeting.
I think, too, there are some positions, I would think, in the classification plan that are unfilled, but they're funded. And there are some that are not filled and not funded. So we have to be careful about which ones we delete. We may not want to delete the funded ones because they may come back,
Right.
whereas the unfunded ones,
Mr.
may
Chairman,
not. It's kind of a housekeeping.
Right,
Yeah.
but I think we need to do that. It's kind of like having a program in force. The program no longer works, but you never got rid of it. If it's on the books, it looks as though someone's managing, a department's managing X amount of positions because they're still on the books. If they're, we need to take them off the books, yes.
One of the things I recall, and I may have missed when I was out sick, this could have been taking place in one of my meetings, but I know when Chief Riello did that really good reorganization, there was a captain's position we were supposed to delete, and I don't recall doing it yet. And I just, as you're making a list, we should check into that.
Very true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm trying to
Okay.
make sure that we
Yeah.
continue to do those
Okay.
deletions as well. Yes, Brad?
Do we have any feedback from the Finance Committee about this?
Great question, Selectman. We did discuss this generally at their meeting last Tuesday. The Finance Committee deferred further conversation pending action of the board, recognizing that, as the chairman has indicated, nothing can officially go forward as a warrant article without this board so recommending. And as an addition, Mr. Chairman, be happy to, with your concurrence and that of the board, place the deletion also on your agenda for October 15th. That is as described in the warrant article to which I referred. Both the addition and the deletion exist in that same warrant article.
Great. Pat?
Well, just one other comment. This has been recommended for years, that there be an assistant superintendent in DPW. And because it is a large department, it has over 100 employees, when the matrix study was done, that was one of the recommendations, so the matrix study, that a deputy director position be created, and that person be responsible for solid waste, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't looked at that matrix study in a long time, but I always remembered that as being one of the recommendations from the study. So it's been a long time coming, I think, and finally, it's here. So I support it.
My comments are that the change is not always easy. However, I believe as the town continues to grow, we have to become more efficient with the resources we have. By deleting some positions and creating other positions based off of those deletions, we give ourselves an opportunity to work smarter, not just necessarily harder. We've seen on many occasions come forward the solid waste manager position come before town meeting. Folks who have been passionate about that issue would like a manager in charge of that. I think I have always had a problem that I don't think there is enough work for a management position for solely just solid waste. However, I think that the level of the reporting that this person, meaning the deputy director, you're not looking at just someone who's a superintendent or the director of solid waste. We're looking at someone who would have the full responsibility of solid waste, who is in fact, our deputy director of the Department of Public Works. So we would have a full responsibility, and that person would be held accountable for that position, that whole department as well. Any other comments here? Yes, Doug?
Just a quick question on the Assistant Superintendent of Parks and Forestry. I assume that's not an M-class position?
That's correct, it is not.
Okay, and in answer, Brent, to your question, the Finance Committee is very good with the chicken and the egg scenario. Before we tell you, we want you to make sure you tell us, so.
Fair enough.
Touche on their part. So do I have a motion from the board, or would they like some further discussion here this evening on this item?
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, I was going to make a motion, but I don't want to step, anyone else
Go
want
right
to?
ahead.
I was going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman, I want to vote, make a motion to create the position and classification of Deputy Public Works Director.
Classification of 10A, right?
Classification of 10A.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Yes, sir. Come up, Mr. Elliott.
You probably know what I'm going to speak about, what phase of this, namely solid waste. I don't believe that we have a serious problem with solid waste. I don't believe we would need a full-time manager for solid waste. But what we need to do is to change over some of the rules and regulations. There is absolutely no enforcement of rules and regulations in solid waste transportation, which is controlled by the Board of Health. Every day, this is broken. Haulers are taking somewhere else. They shouldn't be. They're working before 7 o'clock in the morning at 5:30. They shouldn't be. So perhaps if there is a solid waste manager, who's ever working under him would be able to put a stop to this. And this has cost us many thousands of dollars over the years by these haulers being defiant of our rules and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, there will be a lot more oversight in the entire operation of solid waste with this position. Any further comment? So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, unanimous.
Thank you.
Next up is discuss and vote proposed merger of the Department of Natural Resources and the Harbor Masters Department, new Department of Marine and Environmental Services. Now, I'm going to frame this a little bit, and what I am going to frame, the part of this is the Board of Selectmen, just roughly a little less than a year ago when we hired the town manager, gave the town manager, one of the goals was to reorganize government. We've already seen a portion of that reorganization with the implementation of the hiring of the Department of Finance, so that the town manager didn't have every department head reporting to the town manager. We're actively seeking a finance director who the financial group in this town will report to. This is a second phase of this enhancement of our government. So I'd like to, would you like to start, Julian, and then bring up
Certainly.
the folks? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some summary remarks about this proposal. First, I want to acknowledge we have Harbor Master Greg Frazier with us and Acting DNR Director Chuck Martinson. I appreciate them being with us this evening and the important role they're playing in this proposal. Regarding the proposed functional merger of Harbor Master and Department of Natural Resources, I have transmitted to the Board of Selectmen a draft organizational chart. This is provided in draft form only as the town's responsibilities under our existing collective bargaining agreement with AFSCME, which includes both of these departments, affirms that the details of personnel and staffing are to be bargained collectively. But we do respect that process, of course. We have several weeks ago reached out to AFSCME requesting that we discuss this. As of this writing, we are awaiting their confirmation to meet. I am confident that this functional merger will greatly enhance the town's efficiency and cost effectiveness, given the important synergy between these two existing departments and their common approach to serving the public. If the Board of Selectmen is agreeable to this approach, I will be assembling the FY14 budget with these two functions as an integrated department of Marine and Environmental Services. As I've noted, both Greg and Chuck are with us here this evening, and you may have some specific questions for them. I do want to acknowledge the extraordinary leadership that they have both evidenced in working with Heather and myself, Denise, and others in working cooperatively to discuss this important organizational initiative. And I also want to note that in the discussion with Town Council, this departmental merger does not require the action of town meeting. It does require, obviously, the action and approval of the Board of Selectmen to proceed. What would be required of town meeting if this does go forward is that any reclassification of employees, any changes in pay ranges would have to be taken to town meeting, along with the proposed FY14 budget. And the anticipation would be that would be at the spring annual town meeting to come, if this meets with the board's determination to go forward this evening. That having been said, I would welcome Chuck and Greg joining us for any comments or questions, if the board would have any.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Julian, do you happen to know, by us not filling the former, the position of where Mark Patton retired from, there's going to be a net savings of quite a bit, right?
That's correct.
Okay. You don't know the number, around 70 or something?
I don't have that number in
Okay.
front of me, only because I've been cautious
I understand.
staff-wise for the reason that I noted. But
Okay.
you're quite correct, Selectman Braga, there is a significant dollar amount there, and we anticipate some savings and cost efficiencies in going forward.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on the board? Any public comment? Okay, I'll call for a vote on this issue. All those, we're looking for a motion, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm trying to put a motion together here by
Okay.
looking at the agenda. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion to merge the Department of Natural Resources and the Harbor Master Department to a new department called Marine and Environmental Services.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Could we just note with that, if it's agreeable, that this would be effective with the FY14 budget, and I would be delivering a budget to the board accordingly?
Okay. You want me to redo the,
No, just
Yeah.
make that note.
okay.
Effective with the.
Absolutely.
Effective 2014.
Effective 2014 budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you.
Next issue is discuss and vote, discuss and vote creation of the fisheries technician position and classification. Before we move forward on this, Mr. Suso, I'd like to disclose that I own a restaurant that happens to use shellfish, so I want to make a disclosure that I guess ultimately I could benefit from shellfish propagation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The third proposal that we're discussing now is the creation and classification as proposed of the position of fisheries technician. The board's also been provided with a draft job description for this position. It is proposed to be classified as grade 7 with a salary range of $17.10 an hour to $21.63 an hour. This AFSCME, I mentioned the union is AFSCME. Grade 7 classification includes other positions classed similarly as well. As the board will recall, this position request is an outgrowth of the board's recent shellfish work session, at which we confirmed the importance of moving forward proactively in restoring the town's shellfish resources to the benefit of all. We welcomed representatives of our commercial fisheries to that session and appreciate the very helpful input that they provided. If approved both by the board and town meeting, because as a reminder, because this would be a new position, this also requires a town meeting approval. The position would be filled early in the coming calendar year to be devoted to working diligently in the shellfish propagation process with other employees in natural resources in the Harbor Master's office as well. By moving forward now, we take advantage of the upcoming shellfish growth season, and we'll avoid losing another growing season, which would be the case if we delayed action on this position until the FY14 budget. As I noted, town meeting will be considering approval of this as a town meeting article, proposed Article 30. I also want to affirm along the lines that Selectman Braga has noted that existing funds within the current FY13 Department of Natural Resources budget would be utilized to provide the compensation for this proposed position without the need for additional funding to be set aside. And we'd be happy to answer questions that members of the board may have, Mr. Chairman.
Just a reminder, the board, we had a workshop that included many of both recreational, commercial diggers who expressed some concerns about the amount of money we generated in fees, but didn't in fact invest back into our shellfishing industry. I think it was kind of awakening for the Board of Selectmen for the amount of money that we took in with the limited resources that we in fact continue to spend. So I'll open it up to discussion.
First of all, to that end, all three of these proposals, I think, are ones that the Board of Selectmen has challenged the town manager to come up with, to both streamline and to respond to that workshop. And I want to express my appreciation to the town manager to responding to our request for that. The second one has to do with minor detail on the job description you've given us. It's written for fiscal year 14 in that the fisheries technician will report to the deputy director. During the fiscal year 13, do we need to clarify whether he's working under the harbor master or the Department of Natural Resources during that 6-month period?
That's an excellent point, Selectman Jones. We will, this is in draft form, of course, and I appreciate your catching that issue, and we will adjust that. If we are able to go forward with this, we'll adjust it at the time that we advertise for the position and make that clear that for the interim period during which we still have DNR and harbor master, he will be answering to the Department of Natural Resources director.
Okay, thank you very much.
I know we have spoken about it, but maybe you might want to elaborate on what this particular employee is going to be able to do in the early stages of next year. In other words, we're going to have some funding for the actual propagation.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, specifically, and it's not a part of this item on the agenda, but in town meeting a warrant article, I believe it's number 52, there's a proposal to adjust funds within the FY13 budget, and one of the elements of that would include an additional appropriation of $80,900 to natural resources specifically for shellfish propagation purposes, and that was a figure which was developed in working with Greg and Chuck to develop, to essentially jumpstart our shellfish propagation process. Mr. Chairman, you and members of the board may recall that annually, although there's some variability, the town generates revenues in the ballpark of $70,000 plus for shellfish licenses. Again, some years it's more than that, but that's a general number. And this would begin to reestablish a healthier balance there of revenues we take in and reinvesting in that shellfish resource. As to the details of how that would be invested in growth, I would ask if Chuck, maybe you could assist me with a little description for the board of what we're proposing. Thank you.
Hello, Chuck Martinson, Acting Director of Natural Resources. The first part of that is the town manager had mentioned would be bringing that staff member on board, and then the second half from the funding perspective would actually be initially creating grow-out gear, which would actually be used a little bit later on in the summer, but takes some significant time to build, and then also creating a propagation center in the town, which would, in the first year, double our propagation efforts in the community. So we'd be up in the $4 million animal range, cohort-wise. The plan is every year after that to add an additional upweller on board. As the funding would be at a higher rate, we could phase in possibly 2 to 3 more upwellers in addition to that, and hopefully have an entire propagation center, which would be the focal point of this new fisheries technician. A lot of their work would be done specifically in that one area. There's another component also, which includes oysters for the first year, 150,000 oysters. I think the important thing here to mention is that we do need a jump start. We do need it before the growing season, which really takes part in earnest in April and May. If we wait till the July 1st budget, 2014 budget, as you said, it will be past that, and we will be 1 year behind. So it's certainly very critical part of this process. We'll be having that funding to jumpstart this.
Just one quick thing. The Board of Selectmen in the next month will be entertaining a fee schedule.
Correct.
And the board wants folks to be aware that we set our fees based off of what the fee for service is. So, in other words, in the past, this was one of the things that kind of opened our eyes. We had a lot of money coming in fees. In fact, we weren't reinvesting any of that money. So I want you to make sure that you're aware of that as you make your fee proposals, that we need to be adequate in what we're going to do to support the fishery.
Absolutely. And I think also there are a few other things that we'll be looking at as well with primarily some of the commercial population about dynamics of licenses and those sort of things. Hopefully some representatives from the fishery and our department will be able to get together and work through some of the further issues only to help the fishery. So
Great.
We're excited.
Okay. Yes,
Just a
Pat?
question. When you talk about expansion, does that include an increase in the number of upwellers?
Yes, it does. Essentially, at this point, we've reached our carrying capacity for what we have for upwellers. We grow anywhere between 1.5 and 2 million cohogs a year, so we're at our upper end of that. We're also at our upper end and actually a little bit behind on the curve on the grow-out gear that we have. So substantially increasing the grow-out gear as well will allow a technician to be able to go in there and grow the animals up as they become larger, remove the largest ones from the tank, place them in grow-out situations and grow-out cages, and then keep that process going throughout the growing season, thereby planting the largest shellfish in the water, which have better survivability.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the board in regard to the creation of this position?
No, Mr. Chairman, but a comment. And I know it was mentioned, but I think it really warrants to be mentioned again, that this position, or the proposed position, is really a direct result of our staff reaching out to the shell fishermen. We had the workshop, and I just really think that's important. And I know the shell fishermen I've talked to were very impressed. They're very happy to see this going forward. But I just felt that it should have been mentioned again, that this really was a direct result of your leadership and with our town staff and Julian and everyone putting this together. So my hat's off to all of you.
I'd like to say that not only did the staff, this Mr. Martinson and the harbor master, but those folks had multiple opportunities to speak with the highest management. Mr. Suso was able to work with the growers, the fishermen in this community, and come up with a satisfactory conclusion. I surely hope that each and every one of them will be lobbying town meeting for the passage of this. Okay? So do I have a motion then?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make a motion to create the fisheries technician position and classification.
Classification 7.
Is classification going to be separate?
I think you put it all in the same motion.
Okay, so the motion will be that I
Grade
make a
7.
motion to create the fisheries technician position and classification grade 7?
That's correct.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Okay. Next up is the 99 Restaurants. This is a transfer of stock ownership, request for new officers, directors of the 99 Restaurants of Boston LLC to Fidelity National Financial, Inc. Is anyone here representing the 99? Just for the board's information, this is a statewide transfer, so a lot of the paperwork that is normally done at Town Hall is being handled by the State Alcoholic Beverage Control Commission. However, it is necessary for the 99 to obtain the approval of the local licensing board as well. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian Bliven. I'm the general manager at the Falmouth location. And as you mentioned, the approval process has already started through the state. And I'm here just to let you know that at a restaurant level, there aren't going to be any changes. Our president, John Grady, has been with the company for 25 years. He's not going anywhere. There's been a couple of additions to the corporate structure and, in fact, the licensee as well. So that's really all I have to say.
Okay. Do I have, just for disclosure purposes, I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. Yes, anybody, any other comment?
I'll move approval.
You make a motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, next up is the Town Tavern, 360 Main Street, new entertainment license. This is for an entertainment license from the hours of 7 to midnight. Doesn't matter really the number of days per week, but yes, sir, Mr. Rubino.
Good evening. My name's Jerry Rubino. I'm the owner and general manager of the Town Tavern on Main Street. I'm here tonight. In all my 36 years at that location, I've never had to apply for an entertainment license. Never really needed to. However, that's why I'm here for tonight. This is not a big endeavor operation, just a little bit of karaoke one night, maybe something like that, and Saturday night, three or four musicians. We don't have a lot of room down there, but it's getting tougher to do business in town with all the other places, and we need to do something to get people out. So I appreciate this opportunity. Like I said, we will knock off the entertainment at midnight, no matter what it is, and it'll just be a couple nights a week.
Thank you very much. Just for disclosure purposes, I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. Just from the board, from the police department, they have no issue. And everything else, every other referral came back favorable. Any other questions from the board? I know Mr. Rubino, he's been in business longer than I have. He's one of the last and reigning kings.
Last of the Mohegans.
Yeah. I know that he has worked diligently over the years, and I too can attest that I've never seen entertainment in there. Things change, and it makes for harder and harder to compete in this economy. He's a good operator. So, can I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion for a new entertainment license approval, Town Tavern, 360 Main Street.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussions from the board? Any public comment? You want to say anything? Okay. So I have no further discussion from the board. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Good luck. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you. Next up is Woods Hole Golf Club, 130 Quistit Avenue, change of manager. Norman Hall here?
Yes.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good. You're just change of manager for the establishment there?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to say anything?
I've been in the country club business for Woodland Golf Club for 20 years, and Walpole Country Club for 8 years, Wellesley Country Club for 10 years, and retired, and they got me back into it again down at Woods Hole.
Welcome to God's country down here.
And I'll tell you something, for 65 years, I only came to the Cape twice. Now I don't go back over the bridge.
Okay. Just for disclosure purposes, I'm the holder of an all-alcoholic seasonal liquor license. Any questions from the board? This is a change of manager?
I'm ready to make a motion if anyone doesn't want to speak on it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the change of manager for the Woods Hole Golf Club, 130 Quistit Avenue.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. Stay on the Cape. Next, we're running a little bit ahead, so we'll skip to the summary of actions, if the board would mind. First one is vote state presidential election warrant for November the 6th, 2012. Number 2, approve $650 donation to the beach department account from the Old Silver Beach Estates Homeowners Association. So, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move approval.
Motion to approve both issues on the town meeting warrant, on the summary of actions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. If we could move to the town manager's report, if that's all right, Mr. Suso?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman, happy to do so. A couple of items. This past Thursday evening, it was my pleasure to meet with members of the Zoning Board of Appeals and discuss follow-up issues related to the ZBA's joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen in March of this year. As outlined initially during that joint meeting, we focused on the topics of streamlining the regulatory permitting process, a professional review of zoning bylaws, and of course enforcement concerns. Selectman David Braga was also present at the meeting, and we joined together in our comments and discussion with the ZBA members, and I look forward to that, working with that important board, continuing to evolve in an important partnership. Stay tuned to that. Also, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to, as a reminder, I noted this, I think, at last week's meeting. This Thursday, October 4th, at the library, the Cape Cod Commission will be holding a hearing for public comments on the town's comprehensive wastewater management plan. The board is fully aware of that and, of course, has approved that plan moving forward, and we are in the important public comment period, as you are well aware, so that is the next step in that process. Also, Mr. Chairman, just as a matter of information, Town Hall and associated town government offices will be closed on Monday, October 8th for the Columbus Day holiday, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move to individual selectmen reports. The only thing I'd like to say is that I attended the Striper Fest. It was quite well attended. It seemed to be well organized, I can say that, and there surely were some fishing enthusiasts in this community that day. Yes?
Really more of a question than an announcement of what I've done. Is the wind turbine option analysis group was supposed to have a meeting last Wednesday. Posting did not occur quickly enough or in advance enough, and that had to be canceled. They rescheduled for this Wednesday. Both Pat and I are signed up to go to the meeting of selectmen on Wednesday night, and wanted to know if there was another selectman who could either go to that could go to the wind turbines.
What night is it?
This Wednesday night at 6:30 at the library is when the wind turbine is. Otherwise, either Pat or I will cancel our sign up for the meeting in Hyannis.
What time is the Cape Cod Commission?
The Cape Cod Commission
On
is
the,
Thursday at 6 p.m. in the library. That's the following day. I might add that I'm a member of the committee, the subcommittee that's reviewing the wastewater plan, because I'm the commissioner's appointee to the Cape Cod Commission. So
That's
I'll
I
be
had,
on
for some reason, I wrote it down for 5:30 at the library on Wednesday, but it's actually Thursday?
Yes. And Wednesday night is the MMA Selectmen's meeting in Hyannis that we both registered for. But are you going to the turbine meeting? No? No.
I may be
Wednesday
able to
night?
attend that, yes.
Well, I may be able to, because tomorrow I'm doing solid waste. I'll pencil myself in, and I'll try to make every effort to be there. What time is it, 7?
6:30 at the
6:30.
library.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other?
Mr. Chairman, something I'd like to say, because I've been accused, sometimes bringing up issues that maybe shouldn't be brought up in public, but I've learned some lessons by doing that, but also, just like the assistant town manager reports to Julian reports to us, the buck stops with us. Probably a little over a year ago, I had some concerns about, to do with funds and different things being allocated back to the town with the Commodores, and brought that up at that time. And what actually came out of it was Heather did a lot of work. She was still alone in the office, working with, I guess, Helen Kennedy on a very elaborate memorandum of understanding. Very glad to see it done. I know there's had some issues at the Commodores recently, and I didn't realize till when I picked up the paper Friday, some people had resigned. About 10 minutes after I'd read that article, I realized that, and I didn't know this as a selectman, I wish I had, that Helen Kennedy, and she's a wonderful employee, very dedicated, and I'm not accusing anyone of any wrongdoing. I was unaware she was also sitting on the board of directors of the Commodores, this time as their secretary. And I just think there's an appearance standard we need to meet as public officials. And I just feel very uneasy about it. It has been rectified because of the resignation, but I just felt the need to say something about it. I'm not sure, if there was ever any discussion, if she had a legal opinion, if not, whatever, and I'm not casting aspersions that she did anything wrong, but I still feel that, as I said, there's an appearance ethically and that we need to meet, and somehow it just does not seem appropriate to me to have somebody who, what I thought was negotiating on behalf of the town with different things, with the Commodores, to also be sitting on their board of directors. And I just wanted to make that comment, Mr. Chairman.
I wholeheartedly agree with you that the perception there could be strewed in the wrong manner. And there is nobody who makes more disclosures in this community than I do. And just by the mere fact of admitting that you could potentially have a conflict, or that you're aware that there could be a conflict if you don't act in the proper manner, is not a good perception in the public. Maybe the town manager could send a letter to folks in town, making sure that they're aware that they need to disclose certain issues like that. Yes, Brian?
We talked earlier about the speaker's policy and the code of conduct for the board, and I would remind the board that a few months ago when Mr. Suso was brought on board, one of the things that we talked about as a goal and objective for this year for him was the idea of a code of conduct for town employees. And I think something like that could perhaps address these sorts of scenarios where disclosure might be required, or where an individual might have to, as town council has advised us in the past, you can only serve one master, and you either serve the town or you serve an organization, but you can't necessarily do both. And just a reminder perhaps to Mr. Suso that a code of conduct, I think, would be appropriate and perhaps address these sorts of issues going forward.
Yes, ma'am.
If I may, remember Helen Kennedy's an employee, so she would really be guided by the personnel regulations of the town in regards to that. Secondly, it's always been, under the state ethics laws, an individual's responsibility when if they have questions about whether they can do certain things, that it's their responsibility to contact the Ethics Commission and get their opinion on that. But as an employee, I would think that any serving on committees or boards or something like that might be guided more by her employment than by a policy from us. Just.
I agree with you. The State Ethics Commission will not advise somebody else about somebody's conduct. However, we want to make sure that everyone in this community is above reproach.
Right, absolutely.
And we want to, by doing so, letting folks know that they need to be aware that not necessarily do you have to recuse yourself, not necessarily do you need not volunteer, but the worst-case scenario is that you disclose that you potentially might have something that someone else may perceive. That being said, that's the best way to put it. Anything else? So, Mr. Suso, you've heard some comments from the board, and maybe you can feel free to act on that behalf. Any other reports from the Board of Selectmen? I wanted to let the Board of Selectmen know that we will be having a meeting with the Planning Board 2 weeks from tomorrow, and 3 of the items on the agenda will be the local planning committee's report on 2 issues. One is wastewater, one is on energy, if they're prepared for that. The other one will be the development of the CPC report for Little Pond, the housing project. And I've also asked that we discuss, I believe it is Article 3, which is the wind turbine bylaw that is being put forth by the planning board. The board, I think it would be a great opportunity for us to discuss it that evening. The reason being is that we don't want to take any options. My personal opinion is we don't want to take any options off the table of our consensus building. If this bylaw moves forward, one of the options that we have out there currently is that we're currently exploring could be taken off the table by a vote at town meeting, by putting in the wind turbine bylaw, zoning bylaw. So that'll be one of the issues that I hope to have on our agenda that we can discuss with the planning board. Okay. We'll move back in to our regular schedule here. We have a secondhand dealer's license, Cape Cod Pickers, change of ownership. I'll read a couple of things into the record. One is from Eladio Gore. According to 240-50 of the zoning bylaw, outdoor displays of goods permitted as long as they meet the following. Outdoor displays and/or storage is wholly incidental and secondary to the primary use conducted within the permanent structure on the lot. No such displays or storage may occur in delineated parking spaces, traffic lanes, crosswalks, sidewalks, front yards, except in a B1 district. No additional signs are permitted. This property is Zone B2 zoning district and therefore is subject to the zoning restrictions for the outdoor displays. The Assistant Zoning Enforcement Officer had been working with the property owner because the complaints received regarding the use of the parking spaces and walkways for the display of goods. The previous owner was working with the department, and there had been a vast improvement. We will continue to work with the new owners to ensure that all outdoor displays are wholly incidental and secondary to the primary use. Additionally, the new owners will need to apply for sign permits for any signs on the building and/or the roof. Currently, there are no sign permits approved for the establishment. From the Cerie Boudreau, I received a request for a recommendation regarding the application for the secondhand dealer's license for the use of 410 East Main, East Falmouth Highway by Roman Medeiros. Cape Cod Pickers has been operating from 5 Old Meeting House Road, shown as 410 East Falmouth Highway on application owned by Roderick Realty Trust for several months. The subject property is Zone B2. This office has received complaints regarding the arrangement of items that have been staged in the parking area in front of the building it operates from impeding traffic, accessing the lot from Old Meeting House Road. Complaints have been turned over to the zoning enforcement agent for enforcement. Also used within the business operation, staging of the vehicle panel truck is the property in the rear of the building owned by Roderick Realty Trust as well. In 1974, a special permit was granted to construct the building. Dunkin' Donuts previously operated from the site prior to Cape Cod Pickers. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Mr. Maderos?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to come to the microphone and welcome?
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Want to tell us what you want to do, and those were just our referral letters.
Yes, I understand.
Okay.
We went into agreement with the previous owner approximately 5 weeks ago. Prior to doing that, we sat down with the zoning board, the enforcer, pleasant lady, I hadn't met her. She was new prior to me visiting here before. And we went over all the issues that you just have had, and if anybody's been near the store lately, you'll see that there's nothing in the parking lot, nothing on the sidewalks, and we've pretty much cleared out everything that's on even on the porch. And but those things were made aware. The sign issue, it's not an issue, it's just that we didn't think that we could go forward until the license was transferred to us, the permit was transferred to us, and then we have the sign permits written out, and then we will take that. The panel truck, the big one, I assume that's the one we're referring to, the big white, and that's not even ours. We're talking to the previous owner to move it. It is large, and it actually is in our way now. It gets in the way of us trying to move stuff in and out. We pretty much addressed every issue that we sat down with them about, and that's why we're here now.
One other just referral, the Falmouth Police Department, Brian, Lieutenant Reed, the department has no problem with issuing this license. The only thing is that I can say over the years, and granted you're a new owner, Mr. Medeiros, is that I've had phone calls from folks who live in the area. I know this business can provide a valuable need. I know a friend of mine, father had passed away, and it was a godsend to be able to help clear out the house. It provided stuff that didn't go into the waste stream, was able to be recycled from this company to folks in the town who have needs to be able to buy affordable merchandise. But at the same time, I think we want to make sure that it's not an eyesore on that location.
Absolutely. We have upgraded it 20-fold already.
I did a site visit.
Okay.
It just really looks good.
Okay, great, okay.
I just have one question.
Sure.
On the letter from Carolyn,
Yep.
the last sentence,
Which,
this letter here, it states, please note, Mr. Medeiros has purchased the existing Cape Cod Pickers located at 231 T-Ticket Highway, so this is a both change of ownership and location. Do we have to do both?
There was all kinds of confusion with that. We had spoke to the selectman's secretary,
Yeah.
and we thought we had it straightened out pretty much. So I thought we had everything properly lined up for this meeting. There was some concern. She actually had called us and was inquiring about it. The property, as far as I know, and as far as my wife, who was managing it prior to us, when we started working with Sheree and everybody, my wife was managing it when we started to make the changes. At that time, for all I know, the business has been on that location for 15 months, 16 months, I believe. It's approximately 16 months. I don't know anything about the other location.
That's where he originally opened up.
Okay,
When he first opened, he only lasted 6 or 8 weeks, and then he moves. I just don't know. I'm just what
Right.
Carolyn says. I don't know if I make a motion to do
So we want to
both.
make sure the motion includes this location.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think Heather's reminded me, I think this being a corner lot has at times been referenced under two different addresses, but it is indeed the same lot. So the caution of the board is certainly well placed, but I don't think there is a problem.
So it's the same location.
Yes.
Well, here's what it says. Mr. Medeiros has purchased the existing Cape Cod Pickers that is currently at 231 T-Ticket Highway, so Falmouth. So this is both a change of ownership and location.
The original license was at 231
Yeah.
East Falmouth Highway.
Maybe
231 T-Ticket.
T-Ticket Highway.
I'm
Maybe
sorry.
there's a chance when
Now
Mr.
it's a-
Miranda moved it, he maybe neglected to, so I can just make a motion.
Motion at
for
this
the-
location.
Okay.
I have no knowledge of
Okay.
that, like I said.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Is 410 East Falmouth Highway where it is right now?
Yes,
Okay.
and and that's the way it's
So
been as
then
long as
it's
I've
going to
known it.
continue in that location
Yes.
at 410 East Falmouth Highway.
Okay. Yes, Doug?
Have you had a chance to meet with the police chief about the new bylaw for secondhand dealers? I mean, actually, I guess at the last town meeting.
The new one? No, I was pretty familiar with the old one because I kind of helped them build it, but no, I'm not familiar with the absolute newest one. But that's an easy fix.
Well, you say your wife has been a manager at that location?
She was managing about 4 months prior to us taking over. That's when they making reference to that things started getting upgraded. She had came in here and met with her
Okay.
zoning enforcer.
So do I have a motion?
I would move approval of the new secondhand dealer license, a change of ownership of Cape Cod Pickers and auction at 410 East Falmouth Highway.
Okay. It's mentioned.
Okay.
Yep. That's good. A second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Next up is a sign hearing, watershed ride. Just for the board's information, we're in a precarious situation here on this issue. The watershed ride is, are looking for 12-yard signs. Is someone here from the applicant? This is for the Buzzards Bay Coalition. They're looking for 12 signs, but before the design review committee meets again. So we don't have the ability to actually wait for the design review committee. The design review committee has been issued this, but we don't have the ability to wait for them because, in fact, their meeting will be after the day of this ride. We have already approved at a previous meeting the event application, but this is an application for 12 signs located at 19 Quistit Harbor Road, 29 Quistit Harbor Road, 51 Quistit Harbor Road, 245 Woods Hole Road, 252 Woods Hole Road, 297 Quaker Road, 881 Palmer Avenue, 130 Sepawisset Road, 69 Davis Straits, 38 Locust Street, 40 North Falmouth Highway, and 790 Main Street, Falmouth Recreation Center. My thoughts on this always to the board is that I would much prefer folks come and ask us for permission to put up temporary signs than just merely do guerrilla marketing and pull the signs down before anyone has an opportunity to react. But, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have no problem with this request, and I would move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussions from the board?
Just a brief one.
Sure.
If there's a way that we can encourage, because I think this is a yearly event, for them to get it on the, done it a month earlier, so we can have a design review committee. I feel a little bit awkward about superseding their recommendation, but in this case, they have done in the past. I think it's a fine thing to do.
Right.
But also maybe a note back to them saying, next time, just ask 2 weeks earlier, it's all fine.
This is a first-time event, so I'm sure the
Okay.
next time around, they'll be a little bit more organized.
We did it last year.
Did they do it last year?
They did?
I don't remember that. Okay, so anyways, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? Yes, come right up.
Nancy Hayward, West Falmouth. This is a fundraising ride for the Coalition for Buzzards Bay. My husband and I have done water sampling for the Coalition for Buzzards Bay and support the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, not by bike riding, And I think it's certainly a worthy organization, and I certainly feel that I would be most hopeful, as you're going ahead, that it is appropriate to give them permit for these signs. And to those members of the Coalition for Buzzards Bay, whom I know personally, I will pass on your comment about please getting their notices to you sooner. Thanks.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Next up is a sign hearing from DJ's Famous Wings. This is a request for variance for a promotional banner. If I can read a couple of things into the record. For Mr. Gore, Section 184-30 and 2 entitles the applicant to a 16-square-foot banner sign for a total of 30 days in a calendar year, and a 32-square-foot banner for a total of 14 days in a calendar year. The total of 44 days for promotional signage. Permitting the proposed 30-square-foot banner for 3.5-month period may create a precedent for other establishments in the town of Falmouth. We have received numerous applications for promotional signage similar to the proposed banner, but have denied these applicants based on the sign bylaw. In May 2012, this department received several complaints pertaining to a banner sign at the 99 restaurant, as it was excessive of the promotional days permitted. As a result of those complaints, we requested the removal of the sign. The 99 restaurant is in a similar business in close proximity to this applicant. The next letter from the Design Review Committee. The Design Review Committee reviewed the application for a 30-square-foot banner to be placed on the building at 872 Main Street in Falmouth, outside the business, while the business owners complete the renovation of their portion of the building. The size of the banner does fit the bylaw of the wall, as the wall is 50 feet long. The issue for the selectmen is the length of the time they would like the banner to stay on the wall. They would like to start on 9/13, 9/15/12 and end on 12/31/12. The bylaw limits these promotional signs to 30 days. The committee would like to help the applicant in their project, which will take the 3 months asked for, to recommend this banner for the Board of Selectmen for the length of time they asked for. Is there an applicant? Yes. Go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Ethne Carlin and my husband Dennis Carlin. We're the owners of DJ's Famous Wings. I have a picture, if you'd like to see a picture. Do you have one?
We have one here
You
as
do?
well, and
Okay.
I'll pass it down.
Right.
I don't know, does the board have this in their packets?
Yep.
Our concern was that we were told that if we wanted to put the sign up for 3 months, that we had to come in front of the selectmen, because it's taken a lot longer than we had initially planned, and the sign is going up anyway, but we've had a lot of people saying, oh, you're not coming to town, you are coming to town, so.
A lot of confusion.
We just wanted to put up a sign saying that we're all in and we're definitely coming to town, and it's gonna probably take 3 months for the build-up before we actually open, so that was our purpose.
Okay, and can I ask a few questions tonight?
Sure.
If we do in fact approve this banner, and we approve it for a period of time, the question is, and you don't meet that time, we say that we'd give you the 3 months and it goes to 12/31, that would be the end.
Right.
And you're not ready to open.
Right, and we understand, at that time, we would just take down the banner. At that point, we would have up our regular sign, which we've already gotten permitted, so people would know that it's in fact happening, and hopefully it will be by then, but if not, we would just remove the sign on 12/31.
And I'm going to try to walk you through this a little bit. Is this in fact the same location where your permanent sign will be?
Yes,
Okay.
the exact. Well, it's not, no. No, I,
Physically, I mean, it's the same location, but
That's what I'm
physically
saying.
it's not the same.
Right, but that's
Physically,
exactly what
yes.
I'm saying.
it's on a different eve.
Right.
The coming soon sign is not at the same placement of the permanent sign.
Okay,
There's
But
no
it's at the
sign there
same
now.
location.
okay.
Right.
I'll open it up to the board for discussion. Yes, Brett?
So am I to understand then, you say you have the permitted sign, so you have the permanent sign, you have already received the permit for that, or?
Yes, we have.
Right,
And
but it hasn't been built, it's not up.
It
how
isn't up,
soon?
but it will be going up at some point, but it's just been, when we've been there, people have come up and said, oh, we heard you're not coming, you are coming, you aren't, so
How soon do you expect that sign to be available to you?
the permanent sign within 2 to 3 weeks, probably.
Okay.
And that's going to go underneath the eaves?
No,
No.
it's actually, this would be the temporary sign right here, the banner, and the permanent sign will be right here as permanent, as in the permit.
So this is the 50 feet.
So it wouldn't be on an
Right,
eve?
the 50 feet goes from here to the end of the building, but the permanent sign is mounted here, this is just a temporary sign. I don't know if that's stable on your.
Can I walk through a potential compromise to you here?
Sure.
And I kind of reading into what Brent is thinking, I believe, is.
We'll see how you are tonight.
Potentially, if we gave you authorization to use this until your permanent sign went up, even if your permanent sign went up before you opened, so you could put up a smaller banner, a smaller sign that would say "coming soon" next to your permanent sign, if you follow the location, the logic here. We're afraid, this board's afraid of setting precedents
Right,
that we would have to do for each and every business.
going forward, right.
I understand.
So we're trying to work with you, or at least I am, trying to talk to you through this. So, first of all, it doesn't meet the the size requirements, but if we were to overlook that, and you were able to, that might not be 3 weeks when your permanent sign is ready, but when it's ready and it goes up,
Right.
you take down the banner and then just
Use our regular sign.
use your regular sign for promotional purposes?
That would be fine, it's just that I wanted to stress the coming soon, like, not exactly when the permanent sign kind of says,
Okay.
we're open now, or, that's.
That's what they're
All
saying.
right. Well, let me see if Karnak was really there.
You're hitting it right on the money.
Okay.
Karnak.
Yes, Pat?
Well, I was going to say, I didn't know that your permanent sign would be coming that soon.
Well,
If it is, I like their idea, because otherwise, I would think that a banner of that size for 30 days would certainly call enough attention to your business that you wouldn't need 3 months to have it up.
I'd just like to say to the board, if you look at it in perspective on the picture, when you hear the size, it sounds a bit large.
Yeah.
But when
When
you
you
look
put it
at
on
it
the
in
roof.
perspective, when you put it on that one section of the roof, without any other signage, it is really not that large. What the design review committee is saying to this board is that they can have a sign that large in the 50 feet that they have. So, a permanent sign, not a promotional banner.
Correct.
So, what I'm thinking to the board here is if we allow this until a permanent sign goes up, whether it be 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, or 2 months,
Right.
with a drop dead of December the 31st, then when they get the permanent sign, they take this one down. It still meets the criteria of the design review committee, meaning the total amount of footage on a storefront that large. What's, Doug, I see.
I have 2 comments. One is, it's not really our business to help you do your business, but I would worry about having this sign up for a long time without your business actually being there. That eventually people are going to ignore your sign and say, well, actually, they're not coming. That really you're going to do yourself better business by having it go up when you know how soon you're going to open, so that people can expect it. I would also be worried that on the provision of saying they could keep this up until the permanent sign went up, I would want a little bit more pressure to actually get the permanent sign up. They would say, well, it's up to us to when we put that up, and so I'm not sure how we.
Well, that's why I said a drop dead date of at least December the 31st.
Again, that's going way
But that would
beyond.
be
Yeah, all right,
October
right.
1st to December 31st, that's 3 months. I would think you'd get far more bang for your buck in the last 30, when you know you're going to open, to have that banner up for 30 days. Because otherwise, people are just going to see it, and they're not going to pay any attention to it anyway, if it goes on and on. If you put it up October 1st, and now it's November 28th, and you're not open, it has no effect.
Originally,
We had
our
wanted to be
schedule
open.
was moving a lot faster
Right.
through various.
And we've just gotten a lot of feedback from various people saying there's a lot of rumor, you know how the rumor mill goes. And we've just been getting a lot of feedback saying, are you coming? When are you coming? We're not
We've
giving
heard
it
you
open
backed
day.
out,
We've
you're
heard
not
you backed out.
But
we understand where you're coming from
I'm going to agree with her
completely.
that by 3 months, people don't even read it anymore or see it, it's just a blank, so.
I can say this, that I agree with you about the rumor. I happen to be in the same industry you are, and I too have heard that you weren't coming.
Well, we were there the other day, and 3 people came up in a half an hour and said we were
Right, they're all
pulled
coming
out.
in and they're
Well,
rolling
actually,
in,
when we
so-
did this, that's when we decided we would go for this banner. But I agree with Pat, and I think, we'll just put up our permanent sign, we'll come back and do this for the 30 days when we get closer to when we're going to open. I think you're right, actually.
Well, while we're here, would you like the permit for 30 days for this sign? And you can put it up at any time for that 30 days?
That would be great.
You have an application before us for 30 days. I mean, so you want to modify your application for 30 days for this sign, a 3x10 banner.
Right,
And then you can, whenever that time starts, you want to do those 30 days.
And then to notify the building department that you're putting it up on a certain day, so they know.
The 30 days effective today, and we.
And I
Yeah.
will do that.
Great.
I'm there a lot.
Okay.
It may be work for them, but to clarify, it's a total of 30 days.
30.
They could put it up for 5, take it down.
We wouldn't do that.
No, but for your benefit to.
You could do that, that's great.
No, when we get closer to the date, we're going to know within 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll put it up.
Okay.
accordingly. I agree now.
All right, and it doesn't even have to see, you can even give a date on that sign. We're going to approve the 3x10 banner size.
Right.
I will
30
make
days.
sure that Mr. Gore knows, and I'll stop at the selectmen's and like, is it Carolyn?
Carolyn.
Carolyn, no.
Okay, so we're just talking in principle here right now.
Right.
Gotcha.
We're looking for a vote right here from the board. Do I have a motion?
I have a motion.
Okay.
That we grant approval for the 30-foot sign, 3x10 banner, for a period of 30 days to be determined by the owner, and the owner will notify the building department the exact date of those 30 days.
Okay,
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? All those in favor? Yep, go ahead. You got to try to get to the microphone.
Okay.
Can someone hand her that, just
Yes.
hand her that microphone?
Absolutely.
Bertha, you've got to be a little quicker when I call for public comment. Thank you. You've done this to me 3 times, yell at me later. Thank you.
It's like Pat Pushcart that had the coming soon on it. If you remember, Pat's Pushcart. No, the new place that's in
Okay, go ahead.
has it coming soon. Isn't it the same as what they're doing?
It is.
Well, it is, but I don't know the specific size of the one at Pat's Butcher
It was
Shop.
very
Smaller
small.
signs do not
Yeah.
have to come before the board.
Oh,
of
okay.
Selectmen.
I'm just saying is it's kind of like what Pat's Pushcart did when they opened the new building, because we didn't have a sign. We just had something that looked like Diana was coming, but no, Diana decided not to come and put another sign up. Okay?
Great, thank you. So there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you very
Good luck.
much. Have a great evening.
Well, at least you got out 10 days' worth of advertisement tonight that you are coming.
We're all in.
All right.
We're so far in, don't worry.
Okay. Next is, vote recommendations for award of shellfish propagation demonstration contract. Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Lowell. I'm the town's assistant wastewater manager. I was one of 3 people appointed by the town manager to review proposals As Kevin said, the proposals were for a shellfish propagation demonstration project. And the others, as I said, I'm Amy Lowell, the Assistant Wastewater Manager. The other two are Stephen Rafferty, who is on the town's Water Quality Review Committee, and Chuck Martinson, who's the town's Shellfish Warden and Assistant DNR Head. So the town received three very qualified proposals from very qualified firms, which is always nice to see. And the three of us reviewed those proposals and ranked Woods Hole Group of the three to be the most advantageous and most responsive to the technical requirements of the request for proposals. The three firms that did submit proposals were Marine Biological Laboratory, Woods Hole Group, and Normando Associates. Woods Hole Group, as I said, we all three had ranked at the highest and felt that they not only were technically responsive, but had in fact done some of the work that was required for the project up front in preparing their proposal. Woods Hole's proposed price was fairly similar to Normando's, and MBL's was quite a bit higher. So we were before you tonight to request that you recommend to the town manager that he award to the Woods Hole Group. Just briefly, the scope for this project will involve three tasks. The first is literature research and planning, a planning level prediction of the nitrogen removal capacity of shellfish in the town's estuaries. The second is preparing a shellfish management plan for a demonstration program. And the third is preparing specifications and a cost estimate for a shellfish propagation demonstration program. So to be clear, though, this does not take us through a project in the pond, but it takes us right up to that point, and really gets the town ready to proceed with a demonstration project. This project is being paid for under Article 17, which was voted at last April's town meeting. If you remember, there was a amount of money appropriated for a series of water quality related projects, and shellfish propagation studies was one of those target areas. So this will be paid for under Article 17. The target in the request for proposals was that this project be finished by the end of the year. That's a very aggressive schedule, but that is the target within the request for proposals. Steve Rafferty is here. I don't believe Chuck could be here. I believe Steve wanted to give a brief update on the Phase A of this project and also give some thanks to people who assisted with that.
Thank you, Amy. Steve Rafferty from the Water Quality Management Committee. First off, thank you. We came before you a while back, got approval of the letter that went to the Division of Marine Fisheries. We've been running a little experiment between Green Pond and Little Pond. We've raised some oysters in both of those locations to compare how they grow. Cost the town, nothing. We figured we should make sure the oysters grow before we get into figuring out how to do a longer-term plan and then investing some real money in a program if we go forward. I would just really like to thank a number of individuals have worked. They've donated free seed from their oyster stock. They've donated free gear. People have gone out and turned these things over. They've monitored them. They've watched over them. Matt Weeks, Dan Forgay, Chuck Martinson was really invaluable in terms of helping to keep track of this, as well as all under his purview, obviously. John Mendez, Jerry Moles from the Division of Marine Fisheries has been very cooperative. Paul Ofsa allowed us to use his dock space for access. Barbara Schneider and Jack Rowe. As Amy pointed out, it's a stepwise process. We're now going to get somebody to put together a plan aggressively, come back before you probably in the spring and say where we're at and what we want to do again. And try to keep moving along as one of the demonstration projects for how to clean up the estuaries.
I forgot to state the proposed price for Woods Hole Group, which was $68,960, which is within the overall planning level estimate that had been made ahead of time.
Any questions from the board?
No, just I want to make a general statement that it's really nice to finally see something moving forward. I know it's been a lot of work by a lot of people who donated many hours, and maybe for me it doesn't mean much, but as a resident of the town who grew up here, knowing what the estuaries used to be when I went out in my little boat down the end of Davisville Road, I just want to say thank you to all of you, really. Thanks.
Thank you.
Does Article 17 leave a little bit of money, not to belabor the point, to seed the actual project?
Yes is the short answer. Article 17 was a substantially larger article that provided more than that amount of money. So we are requesting a vote by the selectmen to recommend an award. Is that how that works?
I was going to make a motion, but I don't.
Well, I just wanted to make a comment,
Yeah.
similar to what David said, that I continue to be absolutely amazed and grateful for the incredible competence and production of work that's coming from the Water Quality Management Committee and all of its collaborators, who are many. And we, as a town, are truly grateful to you.
The committee has kept many things moving as fast as one can imagine.
Absolutely.
Actually, I realize that as an oversight.
I have to come to the microphone,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Apple.
Ron Zweig is here, and he's on the Water Quality Management Committee, and probably more so than myself, went out there and turned the oysters over and made sure they were clean this summer. So as I was listing off the names and realized how I was reading them, I forgot to say Ron's name, and I don't believe anybody else that does real work.
Great, thank you.
So a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. My motion is to recommend Woods Hole Group in the amount of $68,960 for the Shellfish Propagation Demonstration Project contract.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any public comment? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Braga, you're on the roll tonight.
Well, you know, I've been accused of being too quiet.
Okay. Next up, we discuss and vote article recommendations. We will walk through these if it's all right with the board. First, I'd like to take out of order one article. It would be Article 55, is the ESCO contract. And the reason for the board's indulgence is these gentlemen have traveled a long way from Train Corporation and have a long way to go back. So if it's all right with the board, we'll take them out of order and go to them first. Mr. Suso, would you like to frame this?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Article 55, the board may recall, we've had some discussions with this board as well as with the Finance Committee regarding the concept of a performance contracting for the purpose of achieving significant building-related improvements in both town and school-owned buildings. We've also called it ESCO, which is Energy Services Company, or something very close to that acronym. Train Corporation is one of these performance contracting entities. We work with Paul Gentile and the Energy Committee, other members of the staff, including Heather Harper, in reviewing qualified performance contracting entities. And Train Corporation is selected as the entity to go forward with in partnership on this. And we have representatives of Train making this presentation. The concept would be that if, with town meeting concurrence, obviously with the board's concurrence as well, the selectmen would be authorized to enter into a contract for energy management services. And the short version, as you'll see better articulated, is essentially the energy savings from a sophisticated energy audit of appropriate town and school buildings. Improvements to the energy efficiency of these buildings, and the savings to be resulted from those improvements would effectively fund the service payments on the funds borrowed to underwrite the cost of the payments. And with the Train Corporation's expertise and their audit, we would provide all that information here to the board and make final decisions prior to going forward on which buildings on town and school side would be involved. And as I noted, Train Corporation and others will be able to present this in a much more articulate way, and that's a short version of it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, just for the board's information, we're just going to ask town meeting for us, the Board of Selectmen, to be authorized to work on this? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Julian, thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your professional courtesy in moving us up in the agenda. We greatly appreciate it. I'm appreciative of your time and the jam-packed agenda this evening, so Julian and Heather asked me to come by. I promise to keep this to less than 10 minutes. Of course, if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain them. As Julian mentioned, we're talking about three basic topics tonight. What is an energy savings performance contract, which is another term for the ESCO project you've heard about? What is the connection to your 5-year strategic plan? Because this is wound tightly to that. And lastly, what are the process steps in the timeline? So here's a definition of what a performance contract is per the Energy Services Coalition. I'll let you read that on your own, but basically the concept is to make needed capital improvements to your existing infrastructure and then use energy savings resultant from those improvements, which we will guarantee to pay for that project over time. So it allows you to catch up, upgrade your buildings, make them perform optimally, ideal indoor air quality and comfort and efficiency conditions without the conventional capital appropriations process and doing projects on a one-off as capital allows and takes 15 years to do. This consolidates projects, gets them all done at one time. It's in a fiscally and operationally responsible manner. So next. Another way to say it, the EPA describes it this way. As I mentioned, the essence here is to use savings resultant from the improvements to your buildings to pay for the project over time. So the EPA states correctly, you're effectively paying for the projects now, whether or not you do them. Meaning, as Julian mentioned, we're about to start a detailed audit of all of your buildings, which will uncover the extent to which the buildings are inefficient, or said another way, the amount of energy savings opportunity that there is to be captured by updating your buildings. So the point is, we'll help to take those funds currently being spent on utility bills and instead redirect them directly into your buildings to pay to improve them. So what is performance contracting? How long has it been around? Chris and I have been involved in my colleague Chris Marshall is here with me as well. Sorry, Chris. We've been involved in performance contracting here in Massachusetts back since it began in 1994. So there are a lot of these projects going on. It has evolved and improved over time. There's relatively new legislation that was enacted in 2006, which we had a hand in creating to simplify the process used by municipalities to take advantage of this approach. And Falmouth has in fact used Chapter 25A11I to reach this point. It's very streamlined. The streamlined process affords for the ESCO, in this case would be us, Train, the Energy Services Company, to combine the normally separated components of a construction project into one consolidated agreement. So we'll be designing the project, installing it, then guaranteeing the energy savings resultant from it. And we offer a flexible menu of ongoing systems, including maintenance to sustain. Obviously these systems need to be maintained after they're installed to ensure continued recurrence of the savings, training and so forth. So it's an integrated package. And there are, of the 351 communities in Massachusetts right now, the Division of Energy Resources, who's the state agency overseeing this work, claims that there are approximately 171 Massachusetts cities and towns and regional school districts right now involved in doing these very projects. So you're in good company. Next, Heather, please. And basically, the reason for that, by the way, is most communities are in the same position. We've got a relatively long list of capital needs, limited capital, aging infrastructure. Everybody's utility bills are increasing, so this is a helpful solution. Here's a representative example of the type of things we typically find and implement in cities and towns. You see there's a variety of things here. While Trane is known for heating and air conditioning equipment that we make, we're with the Energy Services Group at Trane. Our projects are comprehensive in nature, so basically whatever your buildings need can be included in the project. Things like high-efficiency boiler plants, whether it's in schools or in buildings like this, window replacements. Obviously, there's an energy impact with new windows. If you've got single pane, old leaking windows, replacing those in this kind of a program is a huge benefit. Heating and ventilating systems, building envelope is big. Simple things like insulation, sealing, and weather stripping makes a huge difference in the efficiency and feel of a building. Energy-efficient lighting upgrades, of course, variable frequency drives on pumps. State-of-the-art building automation systems. You know, the automation that's available these days can monitor buildings 24/7, 365, monitor key points like boiler plants, indoor air quality, CO2 levels in classrooms, and consistently monitor these things and alert somebody when something needs to be addressed. Kitchen, cafeteria, exhaust hood controls in schools, and others. So as I mentioned, this is a representative list, but likely the list of things we find in your facilities will resemble this to some extent. Next. So what can Falmouth expect, and what is the impetus for Falmouth reaching this point? Well, typically, the municipalities with whom we work can achieve energy savings anywhere from a minimum of 15% to as much as 25% or more of your current utility spend. My understanding is that Falmouth's current utility spend is approximately $2 million per year. So equating those percentages to dollars, the anticipated annual savings will likely range from $300,000 to $500,000 per year in avoided utility costs that can then be used to fund the debt service for a project that you configure from information that we provide that represents your best operational and financial needs over the long term. So the detailed audit will define all of these things, including the energy savings that's available, the overall program details for implementation. Now, how does it fit within the 5-year strategic plan? We've noticed some key things that you've got in your strategic plan, in particular 4 priorities. And this program happens to meet, I believe, directly 3 of them. The first one's financial and economic stability and community development. Well, certainly reducing and stabilizing your utility consumption budget would meet that goal. Coastal resources and beaches, not so much. There are some small buildings at the beaches. We'll take a look and see if we can help to optimize those a bit, but I felt that'd be a stretch here. But number 3, resource conservation and management. Obviously, resource conservation is the core of this program. We're going to measurably reduce the energy consumed by your facilities and then help you to sustain that with technology and maintenance over time. The last one is water and wastewater planning. The wastewater treatment plant and all the pumps, so the way you pump and treat your water is a hugely expensive, energy-consuming process, which we will also help to evaluate and make recommendations to optimize. So 3 out of your 4 strategic priorities are being addressed specifically by this program. Process. Where is Falmouth to date? First step is issue the request for qualifications. That's been completed. Select an energy services provider. That was completed. Conduct a detailed audit of the facilities. We expect to be doing that between now and over the next few months. Expect that we'll wrap that up in December or January, begin to share information at that point. Bring a variety of projects back for your consideration around January, February time period, and be prepared to bring a recommended project, if you choose to town meeting in April. That would be step 5. And then upon approval in April to implement the infrastructure renewal projects. This project can be phased over a multi-year period if need be. For example, if there are improvements in, say, 6 schools and 10 municipal buildings, you don't want to try and do that all in one summer. We could do a multi-year phased project to accommodate your ongoing operations and minimize disruption. And then after the project is implemented, you then experience the improved facilities and the guaranteed energy savings over time. So there's the process. Heather, I thought we might have had one more slide. I'm not sure if it's in here that spoke specifically to you. Here it is. Thank you. Okay, so this is Falmouth's version of that general outline that we just looked at. October through December, we'll be doing the audit. January, review the progress and define the projects.
in February, develop the project pro forma and schedule. That's the point in the process where we put together all the costs and the savings and help to, put together a tight package. February through March, so I don't want to repeat all this, it's kind of just what we said in another way. Any questions on that process?
Okay.
The date?
I'd like to open it up to questions from the board. Want to hit the lights?
Actually, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just something you touched on, which was the pumps at wastewater, and we're looking at the possibility in the next years of a $40 million treatment plant for our water. My question is, do you have knowledge of new plants like this? Are they energy efficient when it comes to these pumps? I guess because you've piqued my interest, knowing what the O&M costs are going to be for a plant like that.
Sure. So it's a general question,
Yeah.
but new and efficient aren't necessarily the same. You can instruct a design team to design a new facility so that it's highly efficient, or that it's least cost. They're usually different things. But we're aware, at least in general terms, of your plans in that regard. And we would work collaboratively with your staff to look at, possible recommendations to help optimize.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
You bet.
I'm all set.
Right.
I have a question. The various projects, whatever's proposed, you folks would be managing those? How does? Okay. So, and let me give you an example, something that happened recently, a concern that comes up off the top of my head. We recently put insulation in Town Hall, and there were some issues with fumes. That had to be taken out, and the question is, if something like that happens, things go horribly wrong, who owns that?
We do. So Train's a lot, I'm not sure if you've heard of the Train company, but we've been around about 100 years, and we do several $100 million in these kind of projects every year. And most importantly and notably, different from the conventional process, we guarantee the outcomes, both operationally, for example, the proverbial sunny and 70 in your buildings, and resultant energy savings from those, so that you can pay for the project. So we have a vested interest in getting it right. And so we're not going to put you in a situation where we install materials like those that don't work. And if there is a problem, which is highly unlikely, we'll address and resolve it.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question, and I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it because I want the public to know this. As we progress through this board's going to have an opportunity to pick and choose the projects we want, whether they be old tried and true technologies or new technologies. We're going to have that type of opportunity.
We provide a breakout per building, per measure of what the costs are on an individual basis and what the resultant energy savings are. So we have an interactive tool that will work closely with you and or the administration to put together packages of projects that meet your needs. It's a yes, absolutely.
Okay.
It's your project. View us as your resource to provide information about what we find in your buildings, and you can use the information that we provide to customize a package that meets your needs.
What happens if we choose something that you suggest and we don't quite get the savings that was anticipated?
For the things that you do select and implement, the resultant follow-on savings will come about. We're very confident in that. We use standardized methodologies to calculate and then measure and verify savings after the fact. They're federally approved. It's a well-oiled machine, so the savings are highly reliable. So if we make recommendations and you choose to do some but not all, that's fine. That just might mean you have different operational needs or budgetary needs, or so it won't be a problem.
Okay. Doug?
As I understand it, the savings that we would get from this would pay for the project, plus or minus? I mean, is there a chance that we are going to not quite pay for it, or is that guaranteed? Or is there also a chance we actually will achieve even greater savings and actually create some income as opposed to just pay the bills?
So, yes to all. Okay. And that's good news. The legislation specifically provides for communities to be able to use energy savings to pay for some or all of the debt service from the project. The reason for that is we'll find that the energy savings in your buildings is a finite number. It's only so much. It's going to be 25% or 40% or whatever it is. Your costs to achieve those savings might line up perfectly with the savings available, or they might not. So if you need a lot of heavy hardware things like boiler plants where there's piping and insulation. These things cost a lot of money. They save energy, but they may not save all the way enough to pay for everything. So perhaps you'll have a project that's paid for in part from energy savings. Maybe 90% of the debt service is covered by guaranteed energy savings, which is still far better than just, the appropriations process that's conventionally available. But that, again, is your decision to make as an authority. We'll provide the information. If you care to fashion a self-funding project that pays for itself entirely from energy savings, you'll be able to do that. You'll also know which things are left on the sidelines that aren't implemented, and you might decide to say, well, we should put in a couple of boiler plants or what have you, but again, your call.
Heather?
Yeah, that's exactly the right question to be asking. A couple of examples currently in the capital planning submitted as priorities this year were 2 school roofs, school windows, and Gus Candy HVAC controls, which are items that would appear in the town's capital needs. A school roof may not be funded by the energy savings, but you may be able to attribute some of the savings of the project to the capital need that's already been well established. So it's really going to be taking a look at what our current priorities and needs are and how those energy savings match up and how the town wants to proceed in a full budget and plan.
We see towns, for example, I know your colleagues in the administration are acquainted with the folks up in Marshfield, and we're in the 90% complete stage of a project with them right now, a phase 1. We're considering a phase 2 as we speak. But their project went beyond the conventional boundaries of self-funding because they needed other things. They needed windows in 2 schools, and we're doing those, and they also needed the conventional list of things that you saw. But they still have energy savings paying for a vast majority of the debt service over time. Similarly, also, that project went through town meeting, as you would have to do here, so we were able to help them to make the case for the project as appropriately needed to gain the support to get it approved.
And how exactly does the funding work for a project like this? If we were going to do a project that's going to cost some money, we have to pay for it upfront or with the bonding.
Yeah.
That still has to go to the town to be approved.
Absolutely.
Even if it's a self-funding project.
Sure.
I mean, the town still has a chance to say, we don't buy it.
They do. The difference here would be it's not just a conventional bond with no measurement of the return of the project. This is not only a measurement of the return of the investment, but a guarantee of it. It's an entirely different proposition. And we find that when that's communicated clearly and effectively to the taxpayers, they're supportive of it for exactly that reason. It's a proven rate of return.
Pat?
Well, and I think too, and I'm extremely impressed because these projects really, truly validate our strategic plan. I mean, that's what it is. That's what we have adopted. Those are our goals for the future. And these projects absolutely validate those goals and make them happen. So that's good.
I just want to make a comment that I think originally when this was talked about a few years ago, well before you were here, it was bantered around about new technologies and cutting-edge technologies. And I think it sent a little shockwave through some folks, specifically people in this community who had been burned by new technologies that weren't tried and true and proven out. The biggest message I'd like to leave here with tonight is that this board and the management of this community will get to make those decisions as we move down, to pick and choose, i.e. from a menu. And even more specifically, we're talking about things that are necessary as any building gets older, things like insulation, things like windows, and things of that nature. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there's really no whiz-bang here. This is meat and potatoes, kind of fix up your buildings, make them perform better, and cost less.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments from the board? Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Would the board like to take this one article while we have it, in case we have any additional comments, out of order? So this is article number 55. So I'd look for a motion to do as printed. If it's all right with the board, unless there's any specifics on the recommendation, I'd ask that the board allow the assistant town manager to write the recommendations and then be approved by me as we move forward with looking to make the press, the printer next week. So we'll talk about these recommendations tonight but actually, in fact, write them in the coming week. Yes?
A specific sum of money would have to be put in this article to be recommended as printed,
No,
right?
no, and I'm going to let Heather explain that to you.
Okay, thank you.
The article is presented to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into an agreement. So it's basically the sense of town meeting that the town is supportive of the project moving forward. The actual project with the scope of work would come back to the town meeting in April.
So the appropriate sum would be not in that article?
It's not an article. No, there's no money to transfer in this. Let me just clarify on the last point.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, is that you will have an opportunity to ratify those explanations at your next meeting, but we'd like to submit them for the warrant so that the warrant can be laid out, and if there are some minor changes on the 15th, I think we can accommodate those.
I move Article 55 be recommended as printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
for your time.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much.
Drive safely.
Thank you.
Okay. If the board would like, we'll go right back through our articles. The ones that, we will only take up the articles that need a recommendation from the Board of Selectmen. The first one is Article number 5. This is a Comcast easement on Mill Road. Comcast has approached the town. I think some of you have received information. They'd like to run a cable to the vineyard. We don't have any language as of yet, but what we'd like to do is ask town meeting to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a contract for an easement at Mill Road.
Why is it that Article 4 does not need our recommendation? Is that a bylaw change that goes to the zoning board, or?
It's a planning,
Oh, so is it a planning board article?
it's a planning board article.
Planning
Yes.
board? Okay, so that's planning board?
Planning board.
All right, thank you.
I move we recommend Article 5 as printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is the private roads bylaw. There is, as you know, we ran into some problems with maintenance of private roads, and as town council looked into that issue, we found that we are not currently complying with the state law in the form of how we maintain our private roads. This article is a template of providing that authorization to maintain the private roads. We received a memo from Ray Jack, who has some concerns about this article. My suggestion would be that Mr. Jack sit down with the town manager, develop a policy on how this article would be implemented, and that the Board of Selectmen would make a recommendation on town meeting floor, because we would be able to have another opportunity to bring this back at a Board of Selectmen meeting and talk about the actual policy and how the implementation or lack of implementation of this would be. Mr. Jack has expressed some concerns. If I can just give you the one right up front, many of the roads are in varying stages of disrepair. It should be expected that there will be many petitions for repairs of these roads and drainage. The expectation will be that most, if not all, services will be performed in-house. Those services including engineering design, Concom application meetings, invoicing and tracking, and highway personnel permitting for the repairs. So there's a multitude of concerns Mr. Jack has, but if we develop a policy that would be able to actually implement this, and it would be spelled out in the policy. So I would look tonight, if it's the board's, all right with the board, that we look for indefinite postponement and that we would make our recommendation on town meeting floor. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have a question about if a group of people who live on a private road, and they could be at the bottom of the let's say they do want their road taken by the town at some point, could they not use this to keep the road repaired until such time as that might happen? on one side, and then on the other side of that would be people who like their private road, they don't want it ever to become a public road, and they use this as a way to keep having their road repaired, rather than, and having the town pay for it, as opposed to having to do the work themselves. I mean, this, as I only read it the other day, so I don't remember everything I read, but it implies that the town's going to pay for all these repairs, that the homeowners do not. So I'm thinking that there could be people, as I just said, who just constantly come back to the town to have drainage repaired and the roads repaired and all of that, but yet they maintain it as a private road. And we end up paying for it.
And I'm going to read the department's number C. If the director of the Department of Public Works determines that the requesting temporary repairs are within the capacity of the department to perform, the Board of Selectmen may authorize the repairs at public expense and determine whether betterments shall be assessed, an amount thereof, and with the method of assessment, and whether a cash deposit shall be required, and an amount thereof. Any abutters may, by paying a full share, avoid betterment assessment. Basically, what this is saying is they've got to develop a policy on how we would assess these costs. We don't have the manpower to accept 50 roads that would come in and say, we'd like to use town labor right now. This is great. We'll pay for it, but we want town labor. So that's why I think we need to develop a policy on whether we're just going to continue to do grading on a scheduled basis, and then we would have an opportunity to guide folks or something. This is above my grade level for me to develop this policy here today.
Beyond your job classification.
Exactly. So I'm just saying that it has come to our attention that this is something that needs some work, and whether we can accomplish this before town meeting is one thing. Maybe we can. If we can change our recommendation at town meeting as well.
And one other point, it does say temporary repairs. So these are truly not permanent, so you're right. A clear policy would have to be established about how homeowners on private roads could access this policy and make it work for them, in a sense.
Right. Doug, go ahead, you first, and then
I would
Rich.
also make sure that the new policy also make sure that abutters are notified of this happening. Right now, 51% could apply for it, and the other 49% know nothing about it happening. That there is no notification of the rest of the people knowing that this road's going to be, whatever the work's going to be done to it.
I mean, I believe that's even the way it is in the new on the private roads district. You know, we just implemented a private roads district up there at Highfield, the process of doing that, and only 51%, if others don't want to participate.
But they get notified.
Yeah, but that's by statute, though.
By
That's a
statute.
little different.
Okay,
yeah.
sure. Good point, though. And I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
Julian's
fair.
writing notes on this.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, may I note that we have our town engineer, Peter McConerty, here with us, and Peter, in tandem with Public Works Director Ray Jack, has provided some similar cautions and concerns, so I'm certain if it's the will of the board to proceed in the direction you've suggested, that Peter would be heavily involved in this as well, working with Ray Jack and John Lyons and others in bringing something forward to the board from a policy standpoint. So if there are questions for Peter, he would potentially be available as well.
We may or may not be able to hit town meeting this fall.
I would encourage us, if we can't get this in the next week or so in written form, I get very frustrated as town meeting member when things come to us at the last minute in full form.
Right.
And if I may remind the board that the town moderator has made it very clear that the board is required to submit our recommendations. They need to be published in the warrant. So we can recommend indefinite postponement. We may change our recommendation if necessary, but we still have to have a recommendation in the warrant. So
I agree with you.
And there's nothing probably too wrong with that if you say indefinite postponement, because it gets the policy, the project out there. You know, what is it? The general laws, the copy of the general laws and the policy out there, so people have more time to look at it.
Well, how did we used to say this? Give them a couple of bites of the apple, so.
Yeah. Well, I would move that we recommend indefinite postponement. Is that what you're looking for?
Yes, that's what we're looking for this evening.
Okay.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is nitrogen control bylaw, Article number 7. There is one change to this, that the town manager, assistant town manager would like us to consider. Hold on.
Hold on.
I've got
Oh,
a
you have
copy
it?
here. We would recommend, as printed with the following change to Section G, the enforcement authority replace zoning enforcement officer with Director of Natural Resources, his successor, or so as to read, enforcement authority. The enforcement authority shall be the Director of Natural Resources, his successor, or his designee.
His successor.
So there is one change in the article. We would do, amend the motion, I guess we would do.
Well, I will move that we recommend Article 7 with the change of Director of Natural Resources, his successors or designees.
Second.
Motion and a second. Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, Sia Karplus, Water Quality Management Committee Technical Liaison. And I just wanted to point out that there were actually, on the recommendation of Town Council, 2 changes to the language that was originally submitted. One was the change of the Director of Department of Natural Resources as the enforcement officer, and the other was a wording change under exemptions, which is, I believe, Section 7. And it was in the memo, and the change was for clarity that golf courses are not exempt from the 100-foot buffer requirement. So those were the 2 changes that the Water Quality Management Committee submitted with the briefing memorandum that Jerry Thomas and I put together for the board. And the only other comment I'd like to make is that because of the timing of town meeting, as you know, this particular bylaw was prepared and submitted for early September. And there has been a continued effort to communicate with relevant parties, the landscaping community, the golf course community, all people that may be touched by a change that a bylaw like this would bring about. And so the Water Quality Management Committee continues to receive input on the bylaw and may have other input and insights to add after our next meeting.
That could be problematic.
Okay.
I mean, because then we would be doing it on town meeting floor. So.
I think the feedback that I have from the Water Quality Management Committee is that there may be, and this is in the memo, there may be changes that are requested on town meeting floor based on this additional feedback that we are receiving now. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, could you say, okay, so E2 would read, could you read it again? Golf courses?
Golf courses,
It says-
however, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard.
They are not exempt. Well, why would it have to be in here? Oh, if it says exemptions, then they're not exempt, then they wouldn't even need to be in here.
But they're exempt from everything else, but they're not exempt from standard.
Oh,
4D,
from standard D.
Which has to do with the Wetlands Protection
DD.
Bylaw, which says that if you're in 100 feet of the resource area, and you're a golf course, you still have to abide by this.
Well, so it actually says that, though, but it says it in a positive. It would rather be read are not exempt rather than accept? Is that what you're saying for clarification?
As written in the new, in that memo, there is a copy of the
I don't have
wording.
this memo that we're talking about, so that's why
I'm sorry.
I'm a little bit at odds here.
There's also a little confusion because in the memo, the sections are referred to by number as opposed to in the article, it's section A, B, C, and D, and the memo has it section 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I'm not sure.
Do you have a copy of the memo that Jerry and I sent?
I believe so.
And the bylaws committed at the end of it? Thank you. This is Section 5 exemptions.
In the article in the actual warrant, it's section E.
E exemptions.
Oh, it's changed.
This is going to be problematic if we're rewriting the entire article.
We're not. I don't believe we are. I do not believe we are. I believe that this is stated, the intent of that particular golf courses not being exempted from the 100-foot buffer requirement was in the original bylaw that we submitted. Town council suggested wording, which is golf courses, however, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D, as a way to clarify the point that they are not exempt from that standard, which is the 100-foot buffer. So it was a editorial change in what we submitted, what the Water Quality Management Committee submitted to you.
I think the new wording is much clearer, that the exemption.
Well, where is the new wording? That's what, I don't have it in my packet.
Mr. Chairman, if I could read this.
Sure,
So,
okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, I'm
Yeah.
looking at the memo, and it states in here, Section 5 exemptions, the following activities shall be exempt from Section 4. Item number 2 says golf courses, however, golf courses are not exempt from performance standard 4D, and that is the however is
Okay,
what we're talking about.
So you're going to put in the word however, okay. That's
However,
what
are not exempt. Okay, that's easy.
So Pat, do you want to amend your
Okay, so my
motion?
motion will read that we recommend Article 7 as printed with the following changes. Under E exemptions, 2, golf courses, however, are not exempt from performance standard, capital D, small d. And under enforcement authority, the enforcement authority shall be the Director of Natural Resources, his successor, or designees.
I think, did you delete the however? None.
No, I put it in. I said
Okay,
however, because
okay.
that's the,
Okay, for the 100, okay.
4D.
Bill, are we doing letters or numbers?
Yes.
I think if the board adopts the recommendation
Nations that
presented by
can
the
follow.
committee, we can make the recommendation.
Editorial
and the motion
changes.
appropriate with town council. So if the board is accepting of the change from the zoning enforcement officer to the DNR, and is supportive of the change to exempt their golf courses from the Wetlands Protection Act, I think you're in good shape, and we can make sure we get
That
it
is-
memorialized properly.
Okay.
okay, I would agree with that.
Okay.
So therefore, I
Make the motion
I
that way.
move the article as recommended with the appropriate editorial changes by the town manager's office.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is,
Article 8.
8 to 22 charter.
Charter changes?
yeah, it's just too much paper here now.
I know what you mean.
Article number 8. We're going to go right through the charter, the revisions.
Article 8 has some change. And in,
Yes, it does.
there's no C.
Article 8, the Board of Selectmen would recommend as printed with the following amendment to section C-2 subsection C to read as follows. Make recommendations to town meeting on all articles.
Oh, that's Article 9. It's listed as Article 8. Okay. We'll just change
Okay,
that to
yep.
9, and then go back to 8. We have no suggestions for Article 8. So we will recommend Article 8 as printed.
Printed, right.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 9.
That's
Here, no, bear with me. Board of Selectmen recommendation as printed with the following amendment to section C3-2, subsection C to read as follows. Make recommendations to town meeting on all articles except those that are the responsibility of the Finance Committee, the Community Preservation Committee, or the Planning Board. explanation. The revisions of sub...
I'm sorry, you need to do that on 12.
That's 12.
It is Article 12.
That's Article 12?
Nine is the standing committee.
There's a change.
Article 9 is,
9.
Move Article 9 is
All
printed.
of our articles except for 12 are final.
No, no, we have another one that we're going to try to correct as well. Well, let's go right through them here, folks. Number 9, see if the town will vote to amend the Falmouth Home Rule Charter. Amend town meeting committees, subcommittees, moderator. What is your motion on this? Number 8, number 9.
As printed.
Motion as printed.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Article 10, town vote, Home Rule Charter, Town Clerk, subsection A, regarding the Rules and Procedures Committee of the town meeting.
As printed.
As printed?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 11, this is amend C2-14, Watchman of the Warrant, regarding the Watchman of the Warrant to read. Do I have-
As printed.
Is the mayor required to appoint a designee for his help, right?
Or his designee, that's right.
I move that as printed.
Motion, second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The next one is,
Article 12, this is where we have the amendment.
yes, okay. Let me go back to the amendment here. This is a recommendation as printed, the following amendment.
C.
Section C3-2, subsection C, to read as follows. Make recommendations to town meeting on all articles except those that are the responsibility of the Finance Committee, the Community Preservation Committee, and the Planning Board.
As recommended with those changes.
As recommended with those changes.
second.
That has also A in there.
That's correct. This is, we're doing as printed with the exception of this. So that's, A stays, this is just this change.
Shouldn't it be or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So
Couldn't it be
I'm looking
and?
for a vote, I mean, a motion.
Move Article 12 as amended.
Shouldn't it be and?
Second.
They're three separate
Motion and a
ones.
second. Any further
It's not
discussion?
or the committee, or it's
All
and.
those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
They're three
This next article is Article number 13.
Move as printed.
General provisions, subsection regarding other elected town boards and officials.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have any
Well-
issue over here?
Well, it's the question of whether it's an and or an or. There
We're
are
gonna-
three
we-
committees, the Planning Board, the Finance Committee, and the Community Preservation Committee. Any one of those three committees that have articles, we do not make recommendations on. So the question was, should it be Finance Committee, Planning Board, or Community Preservation? Should be and.
We submitted it with an or.
Should
You
be
submitted
or.
it with an or? Okay.
Because or means any of the one, and would mean all-inclusive.
Okay.
Okay, we're on Article 13.
And there's a motion and a second. Mr.
Motion and a
Chairman.
second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up is Charter of the Planning Board, subsection C and E regarding the Planning Board. Do I have a motion?
As printed.
As printed?
Second.
Motion and a second. As printed. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Now, the next up is Article 15.
As printed.
No, I thought we had
Yeah.
it. Heather, do
I
you
don't
have
see
it?
anything.
Yeah, I don't have any.
15 as is.
As is, okay.
Move Article 15 as printed.
Motion
Second.
in a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Next up, under the charter, administration, organization, subsections A, B, C, regarding administrative and organizations.
As printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Number 17.
Has a change.
No, I believe it's 18. This is, again, under the charter, acting town manager, in its entirety regarding the acting town manager.
Under A, the second sentence, we would strike the final date for receiving applications and subsequent.
No, that's number 18.
18, that's right.
No, we're on 17.
Oh, you're still on 17?
Yes.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought I made a motion. As printed.
No, that
No?
was 16.
Okay.
Motion on the 17th?
Then
Second.
Did you make the motion now on 17?
No, he did, so I'll second it.
Okay, I'll make the motion as printed on
Did you make it
17.
Right.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Number 18.
Under A,
Under-
we want to strike, after the words prospective members on the fourth line, strike the final date for, and the deadline. No, we want to strike the final date for receiving applications and the expected date of appointments and change it to, and the deadline for receiving applications, period.
So there's a motion.
So it would read, prior to making appointments to governmental bodies, the board shall publicize all vacancies to be filled, together with information on the filing of application by prospective members and the deadline for receiving applications.
So basically, we're omitting
That's what this says.
the date of the appointment.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Let's see, number 19. This is, again, a charter, general provisions, ABC, H regarding general provisions applicable to the appointed town boards to read.
As printed.
Second.
In a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 20. Home Rule Charter, again, currently reserved for future use by adding new section titled Enforcement to read.
As printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 21, again, the Home Rule Charter. Revisions of bylaws regarding the revisions of town bylaws to read.
As printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article number 22.
Definitions. As printed.
Second.
They're definitions.
Definitions, right. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That concludes the charter revisions. Next up.
Good job.
Good job on behalf of the Charter Review Committee. We appreciate all the work that you did, and we'll continue to hope that you help us guide this through town meeting. Thank you.
We will do that.
All right. Next up is
23, 24, 25, 26, and 27.
no,
All
Article
relate-
28. We go to Article 28, is the next one we have a recommendation on.
Oh, we're not taking these up now? These are all the union contracts? No?
We don't have any.
Oh,
We don't
okay,
have any.
okay,
Right, FinCom.
okay.
Okay.
Article 28 is adding the new classification,
The-
grade 10A, I would move that as printed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 29, Town Salary Administration Plan, Assistant Superintendent, Parks and Forestry, to be deleted, and add the Deputy Director of the Department of Public Works.
As printed?
As printed?
Second.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 30, this is a fisheries technician.
As printed?
Second.
Motion, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 31.
Yeah, what's that going to be?
Oh, that's not us.
They were-
Just skip to number
Oh.
35, I'm sorry.
It's not ours? Is that a change then?
31 is FinCom.
Oh, it should be changed then. Mine says on the request of the Board of Selectmen.
It's on the request of, but it's a
It's a
financial
FinCom article.
FinCom
Okay,
recommendation.
great. And the same with 32? So we went up to 35.
Right.
See, it's the town.
Okay, Article number 35. This is a petitioner's article.
No, it's planning board, isn't it? Oh, no, it isn't. I'm sorry, I'm going to be quiet.
That's okay, Pat. I'm working through this. Article 35 is a petitioner's article to update the zoning bylaw for wind turbines.
May I just offer to help the board get there? There is a memorandum from the town planner in there about the process used to develop the bylaw that's presented under Article 3. We did talk to the planner about whether this should be a zoning bylaw, and they said this isn't they would hear it if it were actually a proposed bylaw, but this is a policy request to adopt something other than what's being presented. So the question is, do we want to ask the planning board to present a different bylaw as recommended by the petitioners?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm not inclined to step on the toes of the planning board. They've made their recommendations. I imagine they've had public hearings regarding this proposed bylaw and that they've done all of their homework. I think it would be, from my perspective, inappropriate for the board to turn around and endorse an article which basically asks the planning board to reconsider their work.
Okay.
I would concur with Mr. Putnam.
Yeah.
Even though I don't necessarily agree with the bylaw that they put forward, I don't think we should be stating it. I actually would be more comfortable if the planning board made a recommendation on this article than we did, because they're the ones being asked to do something. I'm not sure if there's any way we can get them to do that, but they'd be the appropriate ones to respond as opposed to us. But if we need to respond, I would be pleased with Mr. Putnam.
So is your motion?
I'd move indefinite postponement.
Okay, motion. Doug, do we have a second?
second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article number 36. This is a petitioner article, drinking water supply notification protocol. As the board knows, I believe it's on the 22nd of October, we'll be having a meeting with the Department of Public Works, who will be proposing a protocol that the Board of Selectmen will be asked to vote on. That was, as the board remembers, we had our own meeting this past September and requested that a protocol be put together. So we'll have a presentation of our...
We also do have a note from Mary Beth Weiser, who's our new water superintendent, very clearly delineating what our present procedure is, and I'm very comfortable with that being what we can work with for now on the road. And I'd recommend definitely postpone on 36.
Second.
So you make a motion, definite postponement, second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 37, create a charter compliance committee. We have a...
I guess I would almost agree with Mr. Putnam. When we said for the planning board, I feel somewhat similar to the Charter Review Committee, who's done a ton of work, and to make a recommendation different than the recommendations they've been making in their work, I would feel uncomfortable doing it this time.
I think I might also say that the Charter Committee, I think, decided that they were going to stay in effect, and they were going to review No, you're not going to do that. You decided not to do that.
We haven't asked you for any action on that.
Okay.
We might, when we come to give our final report after town meeting. We
Okay.
haven't asked for any action on your part on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would actually disagree with Mr. Jones, because I think in this situation, the planning board is a separately elected board. The Charter Review Committee is appointed by this board. And, looking at, obviously, I appreciate the fact that they've included within their recommendations something which wasn't there before. But when you look at what they're recommending versus what other towns have been implementing, and in particular, this petitioner's article draws on something which was implemented in the town of Bourne, this has more teeth. What has been recommended simply asks the violating body to answer to it, but there's no additional remedial action. It's basically going to the schoolyard bully and saying, how do you plead to pushing other kids around? And he says, well, yeah, I did it, and then what? It seems to me there's got to be some more teeth to it than simply saying, we're going to let this board or committee or commission respond to the potential violation of the charter, but then there's not going to be any action taken after the fact. And so I'm inclined, I don't know if the extent or the detail that was provided in the petitioner's article is necessarily the answer, but it seems to me there's got to be something a little bit more than simply saying, are you guilty or aren't you, and then walking away from it all.
I just want to say something before.
Sure.
I think that's where the Board of Selectmen could come in setting a policy once we have some compliance in the charter. We don't currently have anything in the charter, so now we have a template that the charter has, and then it reflects back to the Board of Selectmen to come up with a policy for us to move forward. I think this is much too detailed, in at least the original entry into the charter. That's my personal opinion. I agree with your idea and your ideal that there has to be more accountability, but I think the charter is a roadmap, and it gives the basic part of the state, the highways. It's up to us then to define those, the detail of that. That's a personal thing. Go ahead.
Well, I agree with you, and I think it's really important that it be a policy, either from the board or from the committee, but it also includes other elected officials, like the clerk, and I think that the policy should be, I think it should be a board policy, and it should be approved by the board, and it should also be reviewed by the people who also have a role to play in it, such as town council and the town clerk, who obviously would, in terms of logging and complaints and how they're responded to. So I would recommend indefinite postponement, and then we take that up as the board and ask that a policy such as that be developed.
I'll second that.
Our motion was indefinite postponement.
I'm trying to figure out what
The
you're
motion
seconding,
was
but
only
she said
indefinite
it.
postponement.
She said indefinite, she recommended
Okay.
indefinite.
And then I-
postponement.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a
I'll go
second.
along with that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, thank you. Article 38, petitions catastrophic events plan. They've withdrawn the article, but I think we need to make a motion of indefinite postponement, because once it's...
Second.
Motion to say, oh, you got one in, David, too. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Article number 39, exemption from sewer connections. We have a memo in our packet from town council.
That was premature or something?
Well, there's some conflicts here. What it conflicts with the current sewer bylaw that you have to connect.
Because that was it was passed by the legislature as a... Okay. Town council advised Matt Patrick that General Laws, Chapter 83, Section 1B, has not been accepted in Falmouth at this time. We have a bylaw, Chapter 180, Section 6 of the Code of Falmouth, which mandates connection to the sewer if it was in 100 feet of the property line. So that would create a conflict. And also, I think it says that this could be premature because the so-called environmental bond bill is a local acceptance statute. But prior to its acceptance, the town must have a comprehensive wastewater management plan approved by DEP, and we don't have that as yet. So this is sort of premature.
Okay.
Yes, is what town council is saying. So we would have to IP it.
So you're looking
So
for
I
a
would
motion for
recommend indefinite postponement.
Second.
Motion and second. Who got that in?
He did.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay. The next up is a petitioner's article about Site 7 analysis. Pat, I think you wanted to say something.
Well, I wanted to mention, yes, that, and I did speak to the petitioner about this, that on Thursday at 6 o'clock, the draft comprehensive wastewater management plan, the draft environmental impact report, and the notice of project change is going to be, there will be a public hearing by the Cape Cod Commission and subcommittee. And in the draft report from the staff, there are 3 paragraphs in the draft report that speak to sites 7 and 10. And in both cases, they say groundwater modeling of sites 7 and 10 did not account for potential capture of treated effluent by Crocker Pond, which is 1,500 feet down gradient of site 7. And then it goes on to explain all of that. Then it says, and then it refers to, I thought I had this marked. Oh, the groundwater model should be modified to simulate the Crocker Pine hydrologic feature. A diagnostic assessment and hydrogeologic characterization as described for Wings Pond should also be conducted to evaluate the potential impacts of effluents disposal on the fresh pond. And then it also, and that includes both sites 7 and 10. So it would seem that the town would want to wait to see what the recommendations of both the DEIR or the DEP as well as the Cape Cod Commission is going to make regarding what types of future assessments need to be made, which would then likely be put on the April town meeting, because the Wastewater Management Committee has asked the state, or we have asked the state, to please have their completed review of the plan to us prior to April, so we can put whatever funding is necessary on the next April warrant. So I would recommend indefinite postponement, and it more likely would come about if the recommendations of the subcommittee do not meet the needs of the petitioners, then perhaps they could review that and come up with something else at the April town meeting.
That makes sense. I'll second.
Does that make sense?
Did you make a motion?
Yeah, I did.
I'll second it.
I would just hope that the explanation would include that we expect there will be further studies.
Yes,
and
required.
We're not going against studying Crocker Pond.
Right, no.
But we know that within the process that we're going through, the Crocker Pond.
That would be the explanation.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that if we circumvent the process, we could get ourselves into a same type of scenario as we did in Silver Beach. That all you need is to make, you have 1 or 2 folks in an area that aren't happy with your proposal, and we don't have justification to support our proposal. It can get tied up for many years, so that's important. Okay, so we have a motion for indefinite postponement, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, next up is petitions articles, support CBI process, article number 41.
We approved that the last town meeting, if you remember. We had dueling articles. It looks like we may have dueling articles this time around.
Well, I'm going to, for the observers that we have from the Board of Selectmen, I'd kind of look to see whether they think the process, Doug, the last time you reported to us was that they hope to have something in early December.
They're hopeful for that deadline, yes.
Okay. Yes, Brent?
Mr. Chairman? Last time we had this, and I spoke at town meeting, that these sort of dueling articles, and in fact, both articles passed, which sent, in my opinion, a confused message. And I think this time around, I would, again, follow along the same logic that the board should probably recommend indefinite postponement for both of these articles, just to make sure that, or at least to make it clear from our perspective, that there is a process in place, and what we don't want to do is start confusing people with additional language and additional articles. I think it best to allow the process to move forward at this point.
Could I ask Doug a question?
Pat first, yes.
What's my question? They is not the progress, the WTOP group, going to make a brief report at town meeting? Had they decided to do that?
I'm not aware of whether they
You're
have
not aware of that, are you? I thought they were planning to do that, to give some kind of an interim.
Still in discussion.
Oh, it's still in discussion. Okay. Well, then I would agree with Brent that they should both be IP.
Well, I'm going to take a little different tack. This is our process.
That's right, it is.
The articles last town meeting, neither of which were really us. This is us. This is, we're saying, if we indefinitely postpone it, we're basically saying, don't support the process we put in place.
But this is a petitioner's article, as opposed to an article being brought forth by the board.
But I agree with Kevin, the way this is worded, I feel I don't understand how we can say, we're recommending that the town does not support what
we're
doing.
Well, it does say the Board of Selectmen and CBI are diligently seeking solutions to this process should continue. Well, I don't want to really IP it if.
You're right.
I tend to agree with you, Brent, on last town meeting. It was mixed messages. I mean, this at least is saying, we support what the Board of Selectmen do, and we're going to come back and say, we don't support what we really do.
Very smartly written
it
article,
really doesn't
actually.
make a lot of sense. I know it could be confusing, but it really,
Except, I guess, the way I see it is that there's an interpretation that because it doesn't come from the Board of Selectmen, that there's some folks who look at this article and say, they're simply trying to push for keeping the turbines running.
Yeah, which should be very clear in our explanation, that's not what we're saying.
But that's not what it says.
No, I understand that, but there's that potential interpretation because it's not a board article. It's a petitioner's article. And some people may look at it and say that the board is, or these individuals are simply trying to push the idea of keeping the turbines operating, which may be why we see the other article there, Article 42, which is saying, let's just turn off the turbines. It may be a response to Article 41 for all we know.
and I can agree that it could be confusing, but I think we have the ability in the recommendation to say, this is our process. We're supporting this because we want to see the successful conclusion of this process. The devil will be in the detail of how Heather is able to craft the recommendation.
Well,
Brett, my preferred solution would almost be, as someone who's been watching the process, if both petitioners would withdraw their petition, so we could just have it go that way. And there wouldn't be a vote on either one of them. And in some ways, I would prefer that, as opposed to us having to go one way or the other, but I'm not sure we have
Do you
enough.
really think that's going to happen?
You think that's going to happen?
well, the other point is that the last town meeting, we didn't have a process in place. We were just creating it. Now we really have, and it's been ongoing for several months now. So I think Kevin and Doug have a real point here, in that we should be supporting the process that we created and that is ongoing, and so far is working, so.
The only thing I can be supportive of you on this is that I typically have never wanted to support a petitioner's article because I don't think, but coming from you, that you're the one who's always lobbied for us to make a stand one way or the other. So I'm really having a problem. But your explanation isn't working. It's not consistent.
disagree, but okay.
I'm just saying, you're the one that always said that, we had always done history, is we'd never recommended petitioners' articles, and the board has changed that, and I've gone along with that change. Now all of a sudden, you're coming back to my old camp here, I like that, but a little too late.
All right, I'll make a recommendation as printed.
There's a recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to be opposed to that one.
I'm opposed.
Okay. That's recommended. Okay. Article number 40, no, pardon me,
42.
42. Petitioner's article, shut down Win 1 and Win 2.
Recommend indefinite postponement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Article 49, this is the property tax exemption. It's currently it's on the warrant as $10,000. I've done a lot of work on this.
Problems with it.
Just does everyone have a copy of the memo from Mr. Bailey? Basically, the auditors had suggested that we make some adjustments to the personal property tax because in some cases it costs more to bill than we actually receive. And the maximum allowed that you could exempt is $10,000. The article originally went for the original $10,000, but I will say to the board, that represents $276,000. Personal property tax is paid for by second homeowners as well as by businesses. The folks who actually live in this community don't pay personal property tax, live in their homes, owner occupied. So if we exempt the entire $10,000, the $276,000 will be added to the tax rate of every taxpayer. So we'd really be penalizing. That $276,000 would be spread out over the entire tax base. So the voters in this community and the people who live here year-round would be picking up the slack for that. After doing some research, I found that we're able to put this bill in the same bill that our regular property taxes go in, so we don't have additional postage. Bottom line is that I think it's fair and reasonable to say that $2,000 or under $2,000 doesn't represent a lot in tax revenue, but also it only represents $4,100 in tax revenue. The next exemption up starts to add into $2,300. At this time, we're looking for every penny we can for capital stabilization. We go to the voters on an ongoing basis. $276,000 represented roughly a third of what we were looking for last year in our debt exclusion. So if we can save them money as we move forward, we have a case to build that we're watching out for their pocketbooks. So my recommendation would be that we go for $2,000 exemption.
With the idea that that actually might come as a savings in labor, that we're not going after those 394 bills.
That's correct. That's correct.
I agree.
Move as printed.
No, as printed.
Well, as amended, with the 2,000.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Then that concludes our recommendations. Keep in mind, we've already voted on Article 55, which was the ESCO contract. Okay, we'll move back to
The minutes.
the minutes. This is for the minutes of the meeting of September the 24th.
I just have one correction on page 3, paragraph 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's Ruth Brazier. Not Frazier, Brazier. That's my only correction.
But then also at the end of that paragraph. At the end of that paragraph.
Oh, and again in the same paragraph? Okay. Right. So with that correction, I move the minutes of September 24th.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That concludes our business for this evening. I wanted to make a note that the board will not be meeting next week in the observance for Columbus Day. We will have a meeting the following Monday, and then we have a joint meeting with the planning board on that Tuesday evening as well. So we'll have 2 meetings the following week. Unless there's any other business or any other reports that the board would like to present this evening, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
He is on a roll. Can you count up the number of times he made motions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Yeah. Down there.
Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116, or PuritanCapeCod.com.